Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Bing bong. Bing bong. Bing bong. Whoever you are in my chat right now, please make yourself known. Sasuga Wednesday, huh? Wednesday is always like this. I think. I think. Anyway, we are totally live now, and since there's no one in the chat, I'm just gonna put this up. Follow me on Twitter if you have not followed me on Twitter already. That's ridiculous. If you guys hear a cat meowing at the background, my cat happens to be in the room today because we have the cleaner over, and when the cleaner is over, we leave the house door open. Um, he usually is very, very curious and want to go out. There was one time he managed to get out and then he was lost. Because he's a silly boy. He was lost for like the entire night. We couldn't find him. But the next morning, the cleaner found him on the floor below us at by the staircase. He is so dumb that he doesn't know how to make his way home. Like I even put his litter box outside by the gate, and by right, a smart cat would manage to smell their own litter box and go back to where go to where it is. Uh, but yeah, he was so stupid that he didn't even manage to send his way back, smell his way back into his home, and the cleaner managed to get him. He was so scared that even when the cleaner approached him, he didn't move. So yeah. Good morning, everyone. I'm still in the chatting mode. We start reading at 11 past 11. So I hope you guys will stay long enough till then. I usually do chatting because I know there were people who question me like why do I talk for like 10 minutes before I start reading, and why don't I just start off reading? Maybe I'm just curious. Maybe I'm just talkative. Maybe I just want to get to know you guys. I kind of wish that you guys would talk so that I can get to know you guys better. Um, you know, things like that. Silly things like making friends, even if it's an online friend. Hey, you know what? Online friends can lead to a lot of things. Online friends can be real friends. I mean, I'm not saying that online friends aren't real friends, but online friend can be in real life friend one day too, you know? What mood have you guys been in? What kind of mood you guys have been in this mid of the year? Right smack in the middle of June. Gemini season is gone, now it's Cancer season. What kind of mood are you guys in? I'm curious. Anyways, I'm still chilling, cracking my knuckles and ankles. I haven't been feeling that great lately, to be honest, like physically and mentally. I mean, I don't have COVID or anything, but you know, sometimes you just feel really tired for no reason. Now I've been curating my wall right behind my PC with like postcards and bookmarks that I was given or I bought when I travel. And I feel sad looking at them. Like I know I'm supposed I decorated them. Like I'm supposed to feel happy, but I feel sad because I can't travel right now. I have travel plans, but it's not quite happening. Yeah, and some borders issue, I guess. Bing bong, bing bong. What are you guys up to, guys? Are you guys bored already? Lurkers? Robots? Are you guys bots? Are you guys. I had 2 cups of coffee already and I still sound like this. I don't know about you guys. Do you know that Pilot, the Japanese stationery brand, came up with a marker that you can erase? You know the friction um, sub brand of Pilot that you can erase. It's a pen that you can erase. They came out with a marker. I bought one. It's pretty amazing, I would say. Man, goddamn Japanese man. They can be so advanced yet so outdated at the same time. It's so confusing. You know what bad habit I pick up lately? Real bad habit. I pick up vaping. Bad habit. Oh, aw, one viewer's just gone because I'm not reading. Well, you know what, guys? In Ariana Nuna's channel, Ariana Luna does whatever she wants to do. So if you don't like me talking, then you are free to go. It's fine. I do whatever I want. I don't really care about numbers. I just want to read. And if I want to talk before I read, I do what I want. You can say that I treat my viewers like shit, I guess, but do I really? Well, nobody's even here, really. It's one bot, the usual bot that's like watching my stream or something. Yeah, there's a bot, the sound alert bot. Hey, I'm alone, so I can say whatever I want. You know what, guys? Fame doesn't matter, money doesn't matter, life does not matter. You don't matter, I don't matter. You know what matters? Nothing. Nothing in this world matters. Nothing at all. Nothing. So listen. Whatever that you are chasing after right now is not going to matter in about, I don't know, a month's time, 2 months' time, 3 months' time, a year, half a year, 2 years, 6 years, 10 years. All those things that you are chasing after right now, fame, money, reputation, career, everything, it does not matter. Because why? Everyone dies. You will die. I will die. So, whether, whatever this Twitch thing is, people think that I started Twitch because I want to be famous. I want to get money. Of course, money is great, sure. But listen, money, monetary gains does not matter. Okay? What I want to say is that we are just a little speck of black pepper amongst all the other specks of black peppers on a steak. That's just to flavor the world. But if we separate that one speck of black pepper, it doesn't taste like anything. We are nothing. So, just let it go. And now I'm going to start reading right now. 1 second for tea, and I'll be right back. Today we are reading Lonely Castle in the Mirror by MIzuki Tsujimura. We are at the tail end of the book with this chapter named Third Semester, titled Goodbye, under the sub chapter March. Ding dong! The front doorbell banged suddenly, and the banality of its tone out of place. Kokoro looked down from the upstairs window to the front gate. For a second, she felt desperate, thinking her parents were back, but it wasn't them. It was Tojo-san, to whom she had only just said goodbye, standing at the front gate. She was gazing up at the window of Kokoro's room, and a worried look on her face. Kokoro was afraid they would lock eyes through the gap of the curtain, and she hurriedly dropped back. She was in a rush to get to the castle, but she went downstairs anyway, opened the front door, and walked over to the gate where Tojo-san was standing. "Oh, I'm glad you're in, Kokoro-chan. What's up? Do you need something?" I heard this loud noise. It sounded like it might be coming from your house. Oh, it's nothing, Kokoro said, and then she noticed that Tojo-san was holding something, a cell phone. Tojo-san followed Kokoro's eyes. It's my mom's, she explained. She usually leaves it at home, but I brought it since I thought of if Miori and the others were over again or something, I could call the school and get our teacher to come. Kokoro was touched. She felt a lump in her throat. Thank you, she managed to say. Thank you so very much. It wasn't that. It's just that the mirror in our house fell off and the wall fell off the wall and broke. Seriously? Are you okay? Tojo-san's gaze fell on Kokoro's injured right hand. You're hurt. Yeah, it's okay. Alright then, if you're sure. Tojo-san started walking back to her house, and after a few steps, she looked back and waved. But it really wasn't okay. Her hand throbbed terribly, and her heart was racing. She was going to set off on her own to the castle. How far did the Wolf Queen's penalty extended? She had heard that everyone would be eaten soon, but would she be excluded from this collective responsibility since she had been absent from the castle? She suddenly thought about the burden of finding the wishing key and wanted to throw herself on the bed and weep. Just then, she heard Rion's final words through the mirror. It's not the Little Red Riding Hood. The Wolf Queen is... Suddenly her vision cleared. She raised her head and stared at Hojo-san still walking along the pavement. Moe-chan, could you do something for me? She called through the gate. Yes, what? Could you show me the drawing in your house? The one in the hallway? The original illustration from Little Red Riding Hood? No, the other one. Kokoro shook her head. Why hasn't she seen it? I've been giving you clues all along to find the key. I call you all Little Red Riding Hoods, but sometimes you all seem to me more like the wolf. Is it really that hard to find it? Don't be tempted to do anything you have read in the story, such as calling your mom to come and to rip open the wolf's stomach and stuff it with rocks. I was thinking too, the whole thing feels fake. The way the Wolf Queens call us all Little Red Riding Hoods. Rion had noted this. That's why she asked the Wolf Queen what was her favorite fairy tale was. There were 7 of us. We have talked about it. 7 different realities, 7 parallel worlds. Little Red Riding Hoods wasn't the only fairy tale to feature a wolf. The Wolf Queen had left them clues all along the way. Could you show us the illustration for the wolf and the 7 young goats? Kokoro asked Tojo-san. Tojo-san seemed caught off guard for a second, which was only natural. Kokoro knew she would react the same way if a girl she had just been talking to had an injured hand and was now making a strange request out of the blue. Tojo-san opened her mouth to say something, but then shut it. Okay. They walked side by side in silence to her house. Standing in front of the illustration on the wall, Kokoro's whole body let out a deep ah. When Kokoro saw the cover, she gasped. Wait, hang on. I have a picture book too, Tojo-san said. Brought it over. It's my father's. When Kokoro saw the cover, she gasped. On the bookshelf in her room in the castle was the same German book, Der Hut und des Jungen Giffen. Oh my god, I can't speak German. I'm sorry. The Wolf Queen had given this hint as well, and Kokoro regretted that she had never even opened the book. Thanks. You can borrow it anytime. The same illustrations is inside too. Kokoro respected Tojo-san for not asking why she was suddenly so interested. I wish we had been good friends I wish we had been good friends much earlier, she thought. Take this too, Tojo-san said. She handed a band-aid to Kokoro. When your mother comes home, you should ask her to dress it properly for you, okay? Okay. Accepting it with her good hand, Kokoro suddenly choked up. She felt so grateful for the world she had. The extraordinary world of the castle, the ordinary world that contained her mother and Tojo-san. I really want to come back here, she thought. When are you moving? The 1st of April. Very soon then. Can't help it. Dad want to move in March, but the 1st of April is Saturday this year, so he has a day off. Thank you, Moe-chan. Kokoro clutched the book tightly and bobbed her head. She wanted to talk more, but she had run out of time. I'm really happy I could be friends with you, Moe-chan. You don't make me. You don't need to say that. It's making me embarrassed. Tojo-san smiled. Kokoro remembered that she said about a reset in life, how she was looking forward to making a fresh start with people in her school, but Kokoro hesitated to say other things she was thinking about. Just don't push the reset button on me, she murmured. It's okay to forget me, she added to herself, because I'll remember it all. What happened today, and you, Moe-chan, and how we were friends. She had made up her mind, and placed her hand inside the mirror slowly, as if stirring up muddy water. The bottom, unshattered half of the mirror was just big enough for her to squeeze through. Taking care that the shards didn't cut her or rip her clothes, she slipped through. This might be the very last time, she thought. With the mirror so badly broken, she expected her mother to get rid of it the next day. She clutched the picture book tightly, like a good luck charm, desperately hoping that while she was in the castle the mirror couldn't crack anymore and that she would be able to get home safely. She came on the other side of the mirror and was shocked at the scene in front of her. The castle was almost pitch black inside, not lit with its usual dim glow. The walls and the flooring looked unfamiliar, as if she were somewhere else completely. The silhouette of the castle outside had faded, making it seem amorphous and twisted. The mirror she emerged from was also broken, cracked in the exact same pattern as the one she has in her bedroom. She was sure she would come through into the grand foyer, but if so, it appeared utterly transformed. The other mirrors were lying on the floor, shattered in the same way. The shards of the ornaments and urns were scattered across the floor, as if after a terrible storm. It took a while for her to understand that she had emerged into the dining room. Had her mirror moved? Nothing about the dark and ruined room reminded her of the noble old place she remembered. Kokoro took slow, quiet breaths, gripped the book tightly to her chest, trying to avoid attracting the attention from the move. Who might still be nearby? A far-off howl rang deep in her ears, or was she merely imagining it? She crouched on all fours and slowly crawled her way around, using the overturned dining table as a shield. Gradually, she moved through the kitchen where she took a close look at the shelves. Masamune had said he had discovered an axe nearby. She looked around. It was still there. The fourth young goat hid inside the kitchen shelves. She gently placed a fingertip on the axe and felt a terrible shock strike the middle of her forehead. Lying, Masa! The force of the voice smashed into her head as if she had been hit with a heavy, blunt instrument. Her consciousness faded. Kokoro was sitting at a desk in a classroom reading aloud some words scratched into the wood. Masa is a liar, always bragging about my friend this and my friend that. Die! Why don't you? The words became distorted. The scene faded away. She saw the face of a boy she didn't know. I hate that. The boy looked as if he was about to cry, and Kokoro felt her heart being squeezed. Then she realized this is Masamune's memory, the memory of a time that traumatized him. Maybe he thought that lie was no big deal, but to me, it felt like you totally betrayed me, especially because I always admired you and I envied you. That's not true. Masamune's thought ran right through her. But it was true. He knew better than anyone that he had lied, so he had no way of defending himself. What he wanted to say was, no, I never meant to hurt anyone, but he wasn't even sure of that. He doesn't need to go. I never thought public schools were any good anyway. Masamune's father was in his bedroom tying his necktie. Masamune was listening outside the door at the top of the stairs. I mean, I heard from the colleagues at my office who work in the TV that the conditions for the teachers are often appalling. The voice made Masamune's chest ache. But they are doing their best, and there are some very good teachers really doing good work, said his mother. Perhaps I'm the one who invented excuses for not fitting in. Masamune swallowed back these words. Instead, he murmured to himself, That's right, Dad. The teachers are to blame. Everyone. He got up and went back to his room. It was spacious, overflowing with toys and books and tons of video games. There was a mirror in the bedroom, and it was glowing. Entranced, Masamune stood in front of the rainbow light. He placed his palm flat and splayed his fingers onto the surface of the mirror, and his body was sucked into the light. Hey, there? The Wolf Queen was standing on the other side of the mirror. Whoa! Congratulations, Asu Masamune-kun. You have, happily enough, been invited to the castle. The next thing she saw was the nurse's office in winter. Kokoro recognized the room. She felt the warmth of the space heater on her bare legs. They're not gonna bail on me, I know it. Masamune was sitting on a hard chair in the nurse's office. Someone was rubbing his back. His shoulders were heaving, as if he had just been crying his heart out. He had bawled so much that he was having trouble breathing. They're gonna come, I know it! He was talking to himself. The hand kept rubbing his back. Something must have prevented your friends from coming. She could see now the face of the person standing beside Masamune. It was Miss Kitajima. She felt another shocking pain travel through her forehead, a bolt of pain like eating cold ice cream. Disorientated, she focused her vision. She was in front of the kitchen pantry, her finger still resting on the axe. Down at her feet, she noticed a pair of glasses, hands trembling. She picked them up and fingered them carefully. The bottom of the right lens was cracked, the frame twisted. These were Masamune's. She shivered in horror. When they said eaten, did that really literally mean eaten? You'll be swallowed up whole. A huge wolf will appear. A powerful force will punish you. And once it's triggered, there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. Not even me. The first day that had all gathered together, the Wolf Queen had explained the rules, but they had not paid much attention. Kokoro's breathing grew ragged. She shook her head vigorously to drive away the growing terror and put the glasses down as carefully as she could. She gripped her arms to keep herself from fainting. She peered up close at the X inside the pantries. She must have just experienced Masamune's own memories. He must have run away from the wolf and hidden right here in this pantry and dropped his glasses. She was curious about the spot he had chosen to hide in. Why here? She opened the book she borrowed from Tojo-san. She had to confirm each location. She had to make the absolutely sure. Bang, bang, bang. Open up! It's me, your mother! The young goats hid from the wolf. As Rion had said, when the wolf queen caught them little Red Riding Hoods, she was hoodwinking them all. The first goat hid under the table. I'm pretty sure there's one under the desk in my room. The second hid under the bed. Under the bedroom, I found an axe, so what does that mean? The third goat hid inside the unlit stove. What's this? Kokoro thought when she found the mug inside the fireplace. The fourth hid in the kitchen pantry. I found one too in the summer. There was one in the kitchen, isn't it there? Behind the pantry shelf? The fifth one hid inside the wardrobe. I found one in my room too, in the wardrobe. The sixth one hid inside a laundry basket. There's one in the bathroom too. There was a laundry basket in the bathtub. When I moved it, I found an axe. All these axes marked where the young goats were hiding before the wolf gobbled them up. She felt like they had all been cleverly blindsided. The feeling that they had been hypnotized into believing they would never ever find it. The wolf queen's voice came back to her. I call you all little Red Riding Hoods, but sometimes you all seem to me more like the wolves. Is it really that hard to find? In the fairy tale The Wolf and the Seven Young Goats, there was one spot which the wolf never checked, where the seventh little goat hid and was saved. There was just one place where you would never be found. The wishing key was inside the large clock in the grand foyer. The first thing you saw when you emerged from the mirror. It was the place no one had ever looked. The distant sound of the wolf howling. For a moment, Kokoro's whole body shivered, as if every single pore had opened. She felt the air and the floor move around her. She lay down on the floor, cheek pressed hard against a prickly rug. Then she got up into a crouch, avoiding the shards of smashed cups and plates. In the castle, the dining room and the kitchen were the furthest away from the grand foyer. She didn't know if she could make it all the way back to the clock. She glanced around the dining room. It looked like it had been trashed by a monster, but the glass door leading out to the courtyard was strangely intact. Her heart banged loudly in her chest, almost painfully. Another howl was heard. A cry squeaked up her throat. The vibration of the howl made her knees weak. She collapsed back on the floor. She spied the fireplace in the middle of the back wall. If only she could get there. She started to crawl. She could see the axe inside the fireplace. Without thinking, she reached out a finger and touched it. She felt another shock in the middle of her forehead. It grew hot and feverish. The very first thing that slammed into her head were the memories of 10th of January when Ureshino thought he had been stood up. He was hanging around, waiting for Masamune and the others. Feeling hunger pangs, she took the rice balls his mother had made out of their aluminum foil wrapping and started shoving them into his mouth. Guys, it's him! You're right. Why has he come? So weird. He's stuffing something into his mouth. Ugh, look. Malicious voices. Kids at the school club, even though it was Sunday, was staring like he was some bizarre creature. Urashino knew very well they were saying nasty things about him. Kokoro could hear it all in her own ears, but Urashino just stared at his rice ball and carried on chewing. A large bird flapped its wing as it crossed the cloudless sky. I wonder if that's a migratory bird. I hope he can make it over to his friends, Urashino said. Not so anyone could else hear, but just to himself. Speaking aloud gave him courage. Masamune and the others sure are taking the sweet time, he murmured, glancing through the school gate. Just then, a warm feeling spread through his chest. The warmth and strength that surged through him were pure and clear, unwavering, Urashino knew that at this moment he was happy, whether the others came or not. The rice ball was delicious, the winter sky was clear, he could see a bird flying. This was a happy day, Urashino thought to himself. Even if he had been stood up, he wanted to tell the others all about it in the castle tomorrow. Haruka-chan! He heard a voice call. Mama, he said, and looked up. Kokoro could also see who it was. Urashino's mother, wearing an apron, had a kind, round face, very different from the person Kokoro had been imagining. Urashino's mother wore hardly a trace of makeup, and her coat was covered in bits of fluff. She seemed modest, yet she had a big-hearted smile. This was the woman who had said she would accompany her son if he chose to go to a school abroad. Someone was with her. Kitajima sensei, so you have come too, Urashino said happily. I saw a beautiful bird flying. I wonder if it was a migratory, he said, pointing up to the sky. Aki-chan, Urashino called. Aki-chan, where are you? It'll be time soon. We need to go home. The howling has started. It's okay, Urashino. There's nothing we can do, Fuka said. Her face was pale. They were gathered in the grand foyer, standing in front of the line of 7 mirrors. Only Kokoro's wasn't shining. Aki wasn't with them. They were beginning to get impatient. Why don't we go home now, just us? Time's running out. The Wolf Queen's house grew more shrill. Let's go! Fuka shouted and grabbed Urashino by the arm. But Aki is not. Urashino's body started to pass through the mirror. But when he was halfway through, he was violently dragged all the way back. Yeah! A piercing scream. Urashino was back in the grand foyer with all the others. The scream was Aki's. The 5 looked at each other in horror and were suddenly bathed in a violent, blinding light like a ball of fire which swelled up, splitting open the mirrors with a deafening bang that echoed through the castle. Dazzled by the light, Kokoro found her consciousness returning. The pitch-black interior of the castle was now completely quiet. She was crying. Why, she wasn't sure. Guys, she said, wiping away her tears with the back of her hands. She reflected on what she had seen, reflected and reflected. There was something she had to be sure of. If what she had seen just now by touching the axe in the fireplace was Urashino's memory, and if what she saw in the kitchen pantry was Masamune's, if she could follow their memories to the point where they were eaten, it wasn't as if she was some voyeur or anything, but she wanted to make sure. She slowly got to her feet. She remembered her conversation with Tojo-san a little while ago. It was her reality that existed beyond the castle. Kokoro had expressed how sad she was that Moe was moving away in April, to which Moe had replied, Dad wanted to move in March. But the 1st of April is a Saturday this year, so he has the day off. This year. Kokoro squeezed the hardback book to her chest, pressing into her palms. I'm going back, she thought, to return this book and say a proper goodbye to her. The earlier howling had come to the grand foyer where the clock was. That meant she still couldn't go there. Without further thought, she dashed quickly into the opposite direction, towards the bathroom. The Wolf Queen's words really were clues for them, weren't they? Kokoro's chest was ready to burst, but not out of fear. It's like a moment ago. I never said you can't meet up or can't help each other. It's you people who work things out. Don't stop barking at the wrong tree. Think about it, and don't expect me to tell you everything. I have given you all clues all along. The small laundry basket was still inside the bathtub. She moved the basket to one side. There it was. She reached out a finger and touched the eggs. She felt a scalding hot air of hair dryer on top of her head. In her vision, she could see a bathroom. In the bathroom mirror, Subaru was reflected with his unmissable dyed hair. Beside him was a bottle labeled hydrogen peroxide. I'll tell them my older brother made me to do it, he thought. Actually, his brother hadn't been home for several days, and he thinks that I'm a total loser, but even so, I'll tell them it's because of him. Suba-chan! How much longer are you going to be in the bathroom? It's time to eat! Hurry up, Subaru! What kind of Dumbo has a bath in the morning, eh? Okay, I'm coming! He grimaced at his grandmother's slow drawl and his grandfather's grumpy face and turned off the dryer. The house was in need of renovation. The sliding glass door rattled. He picked up a thin towel, a cheap freebie printed with its name of construction company. There were a few stains on it. Looks like blood, Subaru muttered. As he emerged from the bathroom, his grandfather in a t-shirt and long johns frowned at him. What happened to your hair? He didn't comment further. Probably because his older brother already had blonde spiky hair, Subaru's brother had rolled up in front of the house on a motorcycle which he said he had borrowed from an older friend. Their grandmother had yelled at him about the ugly roar it made, and what concerned Subaru was his suspicion that the motorcycle was stolen. His brother had some pretty expensive embroidery on his school uniform, and Subaru wondered where he had gotten the money to do that. You two don't go to school, don't work, you're hopeless, just like your father. I'm sorry, Grandpa. Really. These days, you've got to graduate high school or you won't amount to anything. Yes, yes, darling, it's time for breakfast, so let Subaru have something to eat. They started the day early in Subaru's grandparents' house. Until the moment his grandfather went out to go play golf with his buddies or to work in the fields, Subaru had to endure all these sarcastic remarks. He had vaguely laughed it off, silently eat the meal that his grandmother made for him, and then, in the same room, open his school textbooks and study until the time came when the castle opened, all the while enjoying listening to music on the player his dad had given him. My marks are good and I do well in most subjects, so I don't have to go to school. He lied to his grandmother, and she believed him, but his grandfather wouldn't buy it. You gotta go to school. It's important, he insisted. He might say that, but his grandfather never actually communicated with his teachers about his situation. He confined himself to directing snide comments to Subaru. For their parts, the only contact the teachers made to urge the brothers back to school was through their father who lived far away. Their parents had labeled both brothers as kids with issues and had washed their hands off them. All they did was get angry and tell them they had their own lives to lead and that the brothers should get a grip and take responsibility for their own lives. All of which led Subaru to one conclusion. No one really cared all that much what happened to him. That makes things easier, he told himself. But it's dull too. The Walkman he had been using clicked off. The 60 minutes A side of the tape had finished. Subaru put his pencil down on the table and flicked the tape over to its B side. Usually he preferred the radio, but it's harder to work to. The thing his father had given him which he most appreciated was his name, Subaru, which meant the constellations of stars called Pleiades. Kokoro told him the association with the stars gave his name a fantastical feel, but most people told him it reminded them of the pop song sung by Tanimura. But that was fine, he thought, since the song itself was inspired by the constellation, also known as the Seven Sisters. The second thing he liked that his father had given him was the Walkman. A new model had become available that year, but his father had given him the old model. Subaru had thought it was cool to listen to music while walking around the castle, but the others had not really noticed. Subaru had much preferred thinking about these new ways of listening to music than about schoolwork. His father said he would pay whatever fees were needed, so he thought he would take whatever exams necessary to get into high school, as long he could study something he actually enjoyed. He wondered what everyone else was going to do. He wanted to talk it over with them, but it felt against the rules to do so. Well, I'm off to help out with the ladies of the group. With the ladies group, his grandmother announced. Okay. After she left, the mirror started glowing. The other kids all have mirrors in their bedroom, he thought, but I have a grandma's mirror. He rested a palm on the old-fashioned mirror, draped with a purple cloth. I'll go to the castle. Everyone will be there. In Subaru's world, there was no free school. No Miss Kitajima. They all seemed pretty happy, he thought, with their own bedrooms, their own parents at home. They had people who really care about them. Subaru didn't feel angry or jealous or like making fun of them. He simply made the observation. They don't know how good they have it. And here I am, not really caring what happens to me. Today, I'll probably stop by the castle, but tomorrow, I should hang out with my brother's friends, he thought. He didn't really care one way or the other, but his brother had told him one of the guys wouldn't give him back his manga, so he was going to knock him around a bit to show him he shouldn't mess with him. So you should come with me, his brother said. Whatever. I mean, in 10 years or so, the world might end anyway. The other day, he tried using the gift token Masamune had given him as a Christmas present to call his father, but the code didn't work. He gazed at it. The card had drawings of manga characters on it, which he didn't recognize. He was going to tell him about it, but he forgot. I'll tell him the next time we meet. Before the end of March, when we have to say goodbye, at least that was the plan. He heard the Wolf Queen's howl. Aki-chan! Where are you? It's time! It'll be time soon. We need to go home! Called Ureshino. It's okay, Ureshino. There's nothing we can do. Why don't we go home just us? Time's running out. Halfway through the mirror on his way back home, he thought of Aki. I bet Aki actually really wanted to find the wishing key. She must have had a wish she really wants to come true. She chose to stay in the castle rather than to go home to her reality. Subaru found her courage amazing. He knew he could never do that. But as soon as he got home, he was pulled back through the mirror. Back to Aki's scream and the wolf's piercing howls. Subaru, over there! We've got to get Kokoro in, Rion shouted. Kokoro is the only one who didn't come today, so she won't be forced back and eaten. We've got to get Kokoro to help. As he watched them all fleeing for their lives, a feeling came over for the first time ever. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Not yet. I haven't done anything with my life. He suddenly realized. I wanted to do something. The wolf howled again, louder this time. Fuka screamed. Eyes shut tight. Fuka-chan! Subaru called out to her. I don't want to die. Not yet, he thought again. And I don't want others to die either. The pain that had struck her in the forehead began to recede. Kokoro found herself crying again. She wiped away the tears with her fingers. I have to save them, she said to herself. I have to save them all. The castle fell quiet. She thought about where she should go. The grand foyer was at the end of the long corridor with their rooms off it. She normally strode nonchalantly down his hallway, passing the landscape paintings and the candlesticks without a thought, but today, stepping through the rubble on the floor, it seemed endless. But she had to go. She took a deep breath and started to run. I'm the only one who can do it, but what if the wolf hears me running? In tears, she changed her mind and headed towards the game room. It was a complete shambles. Masamune's game device was nowhere to be seen, lying somewhere in the wreckage of the overturned sofa, table, shattered ornaments, and stacked heads and flower vases. Oh my god. Hello there. Nice to meet you. Please take a seat and enjoy the story. Hang on. Oh shit. Thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Alrighty. Where did I stop? I have to save them, she said to herself. I have to save them all. The castle fell quiet. She thought about where she should go. The grand foyer was at the end of the long corridor with their rooms of it. She thought she normally strode nonchalantly down this hallway, passing the landscape paintings and the candlesticks without a thought, but today, stepping through the rubbles on the floor, it seemed endless, but she had to go. She took a deep breath and started to run. I am the only one who can do it. But what if the wolf hears me running? In tears, she changed her mind and headed towards the game room. It was a complete shambles. Masamune's game device was nowhere to be seen, lying somewhere in the wreckage of the overturned sofa, table, and shattered ornaments, stacked heads, and flower vases. Kokoro turned away, unable to look, and when she started to run in the direction of the individual rooms, another loud howl rang out. The howl was so loud she couldn't tell where it was coming from. She grabbed the door handle to the nearest room. The shock of the howl hit her cheek like a gale. Once inside the room, the aftershocks of the howl seemed to fade, and the wind died away. Her eyes traced the shape of the darkened room. It had been wrecked. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Final Fantasy. Oh my god. Thank you for the follow. Thank you so much. Oh my god. Thank you so much for the follow. I'm honored to have you follow my channel. Thank you so much. Oh my god. Thank you so much. Thank you. I I'm always looking at your channel and you know your Twitter and all that. Like, I'm not very big. Like, I'm sorry, I'm taking a quick. I just want to talk. Oh, there's Zapok. Thank you so much, my dear. Um. Oh my god, good morning, good evening, King TC. Oh my god, you guys are all here. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. Yeah, Final Fantasy. Yeah, I think I'll follow you back. I'm not that big on the RP scene. I know Final Fantasy have some like really great events. Everyone follow Final Fantasy, guys. She makes really good like events and all that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay, Final Fantasy. If you don't know what this is about, I'll try to explain it quickly. I do a book reading event called um, Noodibles, which is play on words of my name, Nuna. People usually I have my name is Ariana Nuna in game, but people usually call me Nuna, and it's a play on words on Nuna and Audible. So Noodible. I read books like this to people who are interested. I'm not very big on RP. I mean, I'm still learning, kind of. But yeah, yeah, guys, please follow Fun and Fantasy. She makes really good like events. She has like her stream schedule is like packed and super awesome. Give her a follow, and if you're into RP and partying, go right her way. She's the right person to follow. I'm the boring one here. All I do is read books. So what I do is I read book like this to people who are interested. I serve as a background noise for people who are interested in listening. Um, yeah, like I know people wants to read, but sometimes they don't really want to pick up the book to read themselves. So I'm providing that service, but only by my own term because I choose the book that I want to read. I don't really take requests. So good morning, healer DPS1. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. Thank you so much. We are already 1 hour into my stream. I'm still reading. We are finishing this book today called Lonely Castle in the Mirror. We are on the last chapter, the tail end of it. And tomorrow morning we are reading a new book, and I actually still have not decided what book to read yet. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. I haven't seen you for a long time, King TC, and thank you so much, Final Fantasy. Oh my god. Spooty! Oh my god, Spooty Patootie! I didn't know you have a channel. Thank you for the follow, Spooty. Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys are so kind to me. Thank you so much. Aww, Spooty. Hey. Spooty, do you have Twitter? Follow me on Twitter. No, I want to follow you on Twitter now. I left the Discord channel, the Moon Goblins, because everyone uh changed. I mean it's just not the place for me anymore. So I left the Moon Goblins Discord channel. But I want to catch up with you, Spooty. If you guys are interested in following my Twitter account, please do. I do announce when I do live streams and all that. Like usually I just like anyway, I'm like babbling too much. Thank you for the follow. Seriously, Final Fantasy, I'll go to your event one day. It's just that I've never been big on RP, so maybe you can teach me how to RP in this game. But I'll go to your event, definitely. You have a extensive stream schedule. It's pretty amazing. I checked out your Twitch channel before. But yeah, if you're interested in someone reading a book to you on early morning while you're studying or while you're working, um, come drop by here at 11 a.m. GMT plus 8. I do a reading every alternate days. It's just that usually it's on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But Friday I have an appointment to attend to, so I switch it to tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll finish this book, Lonely Castle in the Mirror, today, and then we'll read a new book tomorrow. I'm still deciding. I am a very indecisive person, so I'll let you guys know what book I'm going to read on Twitter later. All right. Okay. Now we shall continue the book. The howl was so loud she couldn't tell where it was coming from. She grabbed the door handle to the nearest room. The shock of the howl hit her cheek like a gale. Once inside the room, the aftershocks of the howl seemed to fade and the wind died right away. Her eyes traced the shapes inside the darkened room. It had been wrecked, just like the rest of the castle. The lid to the piano was propped open. The keyboard, like a mouth with missing teeth, had been destroyed, and it looked pitiful. Fuka's room. She had never been in here before. The room was smaller than Kokoro's. Aside from the piano, there was no bed or bookcase like in her room. On top of the broken desk were textbooks, reference books, and pens and notebooks. I'm sure there's one under the desk in my room. An X. She waited a few moments before reaching underneath the desk. She placed a finger firmly on top of it. She needed to know, to access all their memories, to hear everyone's full story. Fuka was practicing in the piano room in her house. Fuka enjoyed having quiet time alone to practice. A calendar hung on the wall. 23rd of December, a national holiday, was marked in red. Underneath it said piano competition. It was coming up very soon. Fuka-chan is quite a genius, ma'am, the piano teacher had said to her mother. Fuka had not yet started elementary school. Fuka's mother, busy with work, had taken her daughter to free introductory lessons at the piano school at the invitation of Mima-chan's mother, who lived nearby. The 3 free lessons had run out when the teacher spoke to Fuka's mother. She has a real gift, the teacher said. Fuka's mother was both astonished and pleased. Really? My little Fuka? She absorbs things so much quickly than the other children. I've been teaching for many years and have never seen such potential. You really should consider her future. Perhaps send her to study abroad at some point. Fuka listened in while they were talking. You're not saying this because you want us to continue lessons with you now that they are no longer free? Her mother seemed suspicious. Her cell phone started buzzing inside her bag. She always took the work, the one with the worn handles. Normally she would have answered it, but she chose not to. Not at all, the teacher went on. I'm almost honestly amazed by her playing. And though I don't say this to all children. What he said was true. The teacher hadn't said the same thing to Mima-chan, who had gone with Fuka, or to Mima-chan's mother. I am gifted. I'm different from other kids. At PE at school, Fuka sat on the sideline and watched. The others had formed a circle and were tossing the ball to each other. She was sitting in the gymnasium floor, hugging her knees, her back up against a corner, when Mima-chan came over with a group of girls. Don't you want to play? No. Fuka always sat out during PE. It would be a disaster if she hurt a finger playing volleyball. Back when she was a freshman, they had been practicing vaulting when Fuka missed her landing and twisted an ankle. Her mother had came into the school to complain the whole thing had escalated. This is a critical time for her, her mother had shouted. She has a competition soon. She has hurt her foot now. But what if it had been her hand? Mima-chan and the others exchanged a look. It's because Fuka-chan has piano. Oh. The girls walked off. She heard them giggling. My fingers are so important. It just wouldn't do to injure them. I just have to play the piano, you know. Their voices were shrill, as if they intentionally wanted her to overhear. Piano, piano, piano. Fuka's days in elementary school were clearly divided into boxes: school and piano. Gradually, she spent more and more time at the piano than on schoolwork. As far as she was concerned, that was fine. She was told to take time off from school to have lessons in Kyoto with a famous piano teacher. She would attend lessons from her grandfather's house, who lived in the area. She was often told to practice more, but not once did an adult ever caution her to study harder. Her mother said to the teachers at school, "You are concerned about her school attendance, but would you have a look at her record in piano competitions? Couldn't you consider this equivalent to her school record?" She did not attend school much, and she thought it was okay. Until the final piano competition of her elementary school days, when aiming at the top prize, she came 19th. It wasn't that she wasn't feeling well, or was out of sorts. She thought she had played as well as always. Thank you for hitting here. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed a little short session. No worries, no worries. Have fun. Have fun. And actually play the game. Thank you so much for being here. I hope I can see you again soon. Thank you. Alrighty. She thought she had played as well as always and had not made any mistakes, at least none she was aware of. And yet, look what happened. She ended up in 19th place. This was a national competition, her grandmother said. So to come 19th was amazing. But her mother's face expressed only shock. Later, when she saw how she was marked, the difference between her and the top 10 highest scores filled her with dismay. Things aren't easy, are they? She heard her grandfather say to her grandmother. How much longer is Fuka planning to play? Fuka didn't have a father. You are a single parent, so you shouldn't overdo it, her grandparents said. I'm not! Her mother snapped. They had not made any decisions about studying abroad, in which country or school or with which teacher, so Fuka stayed in Japan. Fuka secretly thought it was a question of money. Her mother worked all day long, and when Fuka got home from her piano lessons, she still wasn't back. Cold rice balls awaited her in the twilight room, and once she tried to heat them up in the microwave, the electricity had been cut off. When her elementary school paid them the standard home visit, he was more than a little astonished to find a high-quality piano and soundproof walls all around the practice room in their tiny apartment. The only items in the fridge, though, were bentos and bread brought back from her mother's job. Fuka hardly ever saw her mother cooking or cleaning, since all she did was work. Even so, the gas had been cut off. Gas, electricity, water, all shut off in that order, and Fuka was strangely impressed at how the most essential to life was the last to go. Her mother had given her a cell phone to take with her since she went to her piano lessons alone, but the previous day she tried to call her mother. The service had been discontinued. As she continued to have longer and longer piano lessons, it hit her forcibly. I am doing something that's beyond our means. And she didn't just mean money. It's a matter of talent too. It's not just lack of money that's stopping me from traveling abroad. How much longer is Fuka planning to play? When she heard her grandfather's words, Fuka realized a few things. That she wasn't able to keep up with her junior high school work. That if she continued to practice the piano as much as she did, she would never have enough time for schoolwork. I don't believe it, her mother had said and wept loudly when she heard what Fuka's grandfather had said. Why are you saying this again, Dad? She asked. I'm never bringing Fuka here again. I won't let you see her. Then her grandmother stepped in with a suggestion. Why don't you live with us in Kyoto? Her grandparents had proposed this idea many times before, but her mother had always rejected the idea. I'm a full-time employee at my company now, she said. And if I leave, I won't be able to get another full-time job. Then we won't be able to manage Fuka and me. And she'll have to drop the piano. When she started at junior high, Fuka's mother encouraged her piano playing even more. Fuka adored her mother. She raised her lovingly, making up for the loss of Fuka's father who had died in a car accident when she was 5. She worked 2 jobs all day in the office of a delivery company and at night in a part-time job making bentos. I never had any particular talent, her mother told her. And if you have talent, Fuka, I'll do everything in my power to help you. The thing was, her mother's face was becoming more and more gaunt and exhausted. Fuka often thought she shouldn't be playing the piano but rather helping her mother out. Instead of going to lessons, she wanted to make her mother a home-cooked meal, some rice and hot miso soup. She was always eating bentos from her part-time job, and it would be nice to make her something else to eat. And not performing well at the piano competition made her truly sad. Which is why she thought that to give up now would be a waste. All the time and money they had invested in the piano lessons for her would be for nothing. When she started at junior high, she went to school even less often. Even then, she didn't have much to talk about with the other girls. She didn't do PE and wasn't in any clubs. She felt left out. But that was okay. She didn't need friends. One day, while she was practicing, the mirror near the front door of their flat started to shine, and she landed up in the castle and met everyone. When she went to her room, it too had a piano. She pressed a couple of keys to test the sound, and the next moment she banged the keys down with both her palms. I don't need a piano here, she thought. Summer school starts tomorrow, so I won't be able to come over to the castle for a while. That's the line Fuka gave them, but actually she was having piano lessons in Kyoto in preparation for the summer competition. The student who had lesson before Fuka sounded so much better than she did, she thought, and it made her want to pluck her ears. She had practiced way too much to even know if she herself was any good anymore. In the competition, Fuka's mark in the first round placed her out of the running. Anyone ranked 30 or below was automatically eliminated. Even though she had been told the competition was on a much smaller scale than the previous one she had played in. When Fuka saw the result posted on a notice board in the hallway, she went weak at the knees, as though her whole body along with the piano was sinking fast into an icy sea. The summer competition over. She returned to Tokyo, and when she went over to the castle, she was given a box of sweets by Kokoro. A birthday present, she said. Eating a whole box of sweets wasn't something that anyone did very often in her house. She relished them, savoring the taste one by one. Before the competition, Aki had also given her a birthday present, and Urashino told her that he really liked her. His romantic focus flitted from one girl to the next, and Fuka had reacted with a predictable shriek when he said this. But the thought that a boy who fancied girls like Aki and Kokoro now said that he liked her honestly made her happy, even though he had looked grumpy about it. Masamune let her play some of his games. She had always thought that boys only let the pretty girls touch any of their gadgets. Subaru added the intimate Chan, calling her Fuka-chan. She liked how gentlemanly she was. Even Rion, the sort of boy who stood out in the crowd, treated her as one of his friends and called her simply Fuka. Whenever he did so, she was so happy to be her, to be just Fuka. Whether I have any talent or not, none of that makes any difference here. They are all happy to know me. Hello? Have we met before? Hello. As they exchanged greetings, Fuka thought, so this is Miss Kitajima. I'm finally able to meet her. The others had apparently all gone to the classroom for the hard alternative school with their mothers, but Fuka went alone. It was a secret. The others had talked about this often. The others had talked often about this Miss Kitajima, how she was someone they relied on for support. She found herself wanting to meet her as well. Miss Kitajima often stopped by Yukishina No. 5 Junior High and had already heard about Fuka, an 8th grader who had several absences from school. I'm so happy you have come, she said. Little by little, in a broken, rambling way, Fuka opened up to her. After the results of the competition were announced and Fuka had been eliminated, Fuka's mother began to lose heart. She no longer urged Fuka to practice like she used to. It didn't seem to matter to her whether Fuka went to her piano lessons or to school. Fuka pretended she was going to school, but actually she was spending time at the alternative school and at the castle. She knew she wasn't about to go back to school, and she wondered what her mother really wanted her to do. How much longer is Fuka planning to play? Her grandfather's words were like a curse she heard ringing out of the depth of her being. As she talked over things with Miss Kitajima, she realized how very depressed and anxious she had been. Can't go back now, she said. I can't keep up with schoolwork. I don't know if I should go on playing the piano. Okay then, let's start to study, Miss Kitajima said cheerfully. I'll help you. It sounds to me, she went on, as if you feel you have become involved in a high-stakes activity. High stakes? You have been working towards a single goal for years and worried about what happened if you can't win competitions or become a pianist. With that in mind, studying, schoolwork might become much lower risk activity for you. If you try hard, you'll always see result, and it never will be wasted, no matter what you end up doing in life. So let's do both, Miss Kitajima said with a smile. I totally understand how much piano means to you, Fuka-chan, but let's do our schoolwork too, not just agonize over the piano. Will you be my teacher? Miss Kitajima responded, tilting her head. Her eyes looked pleased. Of course. This is a school after all. I'll help you with your schoolwork. Holed up in her room in the castle, Fuka opened a textbook and got down to the homework Miss Kitajima had set for her. She was sure she could catch up with the next grade's level of work pretty soon. Without her mother or anyone else around, she could concentrate on her studies in peace and quiet. Not once did she touch the piano in her room in the castle again. Until February, the last day of the month. When she got to the castle, no one else was there. Hers was the only mirror shining. Fuka suddenly wondered, was it today that the castle was going to be closed forever? Wolf Queen! She called out, uneasy, but the Wolf Queen didn't appear. This was a first. She walked along the hallway to her room, where she had a sudden urge to play the piano. She opened the lid, rested her fingers on the keys, and began to play. The notes rang out beautifully, and she knew the piano had been perfectly tuned. Feeling the keys under her fingers, she became totally immersed. She could concentrate and listen to the sound she was making. She loved the stillness. This feels so good, she thought. She didn't notice until she had stopped that someone was standing on the doorway listening. The door was open, and there stood Aki. You startled me. Aki's eyes were wide. Sorry to come in without asking, but Fuka, you're so good. Yeah, well, you're a musical genius, aren't you? Not really. The term should have stabbed her at her, but when Aki said it, she gave a wry smile. Hey, Aki said, what's this? A textbook? I thought you were staying cooped up in your room a lot. Have you been studying? Yeah. Fuka glanced at the pens lined up on her desk. Studying is low risk. Why is that? Instead of investing everything in one talent, this is a slow and steady way to grow. The most certain way. She hoped it didn't sound false. Someone told me if I do it, it will never turn out to be a waste. Aki was usually irritable, edgy, but with just two of them in the castle today, Fuka felt strangely more relaxed with her. She told her the whole story about the competitions, about the schoolworks, about her mother, and about Miss Kitajima, and how they all let her to pick up her studies again. Maybe I'll try that too. Studying, Aki murmured. Fuka nodded. You should. Let's do it together. I never want to forget what happened here. I never want to forget the time I spent with everyone. I made my own decision. I stopped feeling anxious. I'm so happy to meet them all. Kokoro, Aki, Subaru, Ureshino, Masamune, and Rion. Aki! Fuka was standing in front of the glowing mirror, calling out for Aki. Let's go home now, Aki! But Aki didn't appear. She stood in front of Kokoro's mirror and pleaded, I don't want to forget any of it. If someone's wish comes true, I'll forget everything. She was so angry at Aki's selfishness that she could hardly speak. Please, Kokoro, the wish. Aki, whom she had spent so much time with, she couldn't just vanish forever. Not now, when we promised to do our studying together. I just couldn't bear it. Make a wish come true. Find the key. She begged this from the bottom of her heart. The stabbing pain faded from Kokoro's forehead. She wiped away her tears. She laid her palm on the broken piano keys. Just hold on, she called, looking over the desk at Fuka's neatly arranged pens lying idle. I will help you. And then I'll say to you, I am happy that I met you too, Fuka. The room next to Fuka belongs to Rion. She hesitated at first before turning the handle and pushing the door open. It was definitely a boy's room. A burlap bag and a football lay on the floor, things he must have brought with him at some point. Just like the other rooms, the Wolf Queen had trashed it. Even so, Kokoro thought, this is clearly Rion's room. Just as Rion had said, there was an axe underneath his bed. She scraped it lightly with her fingernail. Rion had noticed that the Wolf Queen was not the wolf from the Little Red Riding Hood, but the wolf and the 7 young goats. How did he even know? And why didn't he tell anyone? She was thinking this when she heard a sing-song voice. Knock, 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 it's your mother. No, it isn't, it's the wolf. A young girl of elementary school age perhaps had a book open on her lap and was reading aloud from it. It was Rion's older sister, Mio-chan. She was wearing a hospital gown and a cap. Kokoro saw she had no hair. Rion was only 5 years old and loved to come to the hospital to visit her sister. Mio may have been bald, but her eyes were large, her skin creamy. Whenever Rion was asked in kindergarten who he would marry, he always answered, Mio-chan. Mio-chan was so good at reading aloud, and she had brought alive the same scene many times. It's your mother. No, it isn't. It's the wolf. With all the appropriate facial expressions. Okay, so who do you think it is? She asked. The mother or the wolf? And Rion cried out, It's the wolf! As if he were inside the story himself. Well then, we shall see, won't we? Said Mio-chan, turning the page. She was skilled at making up her own stories as well. Rian thought she should write her own, of robots from the future or the search for a spy in a locked house. She came up with so many amazing ideas, all of them far more fun than anything to be found in a book. Alright, Rion, it's time to go home. Their mother cut in and they each nodded in a reluctant, okay. They got up to leave the hospital ward with its faint odor of disinfectant, and Rion took his parents' hands. See you later, Rion, Mio-chan said with a small wave. We'll come again tomorrow, Mio. As they were walking home along the tree-lined road, the autumn leaves a burnished gold. Rion's mother suddenly turned to him and said, Rion, I don't think it is such a good idea for Mio-chan to read that story. His mother's. Why not? His mother's hands grasping his own so tightly was trembling. The wolf and the 7 young goats, she replied, sounding irritated, was the play that Mia was supposed to be in the kindergarten. I'm sure she has not forgotten. Come on now, Leon's father said. It's a long time ago. I don't think Mio remembers it. She likes that book and they both seem to enjoy it. Oh, be quiet! Rion's mother shouted. She sank down on the ground. Why? A tiny whisper escaped her lips. Why, Mio? Why did it have to be her? Rion stared in shock at his hand, which his mother had shaken off. His father was rubbing her back. He helped her to her feet. Rion stared at his parents, confused. I'm sorry, he said. He thought they were angry at him, but his mother didn't reply, just silently bit her lip. It's okay, his father said instead, and ruffled his hair with his fingers. Rion, his father said to him. His sister said to him, another day when he was visiting the hospital. You stay well, okay? And be with mom and dad, always. Okay. Rion really didn't know what she was getting at, but nodded anyway. Mio smiled. A new decoration had arrived in her ward. That day, a miniature Christmas tree had been placed by the window, and Rion realized what season it was. On her bed lay a large toy she had been playing with, an exquisite dollhouse, each perfectly formed room brightly lit with tiny bulbs. It was foreign made, and an English instruction book lay open beside it. If I'm not here anymore, Mio said, I'll hope for one single wish for you, Rion. I'm sorry you have had to put up with so much. You missed that trip, and then Mom couldn't go to your dance recital either, could she? Rion couldn't understand why she was bringing these things up, and he stared at her blankly. Mio-chan was stuck in a bed, and so not being able to go on a trip, or Mom not attending whatever, it was only to be expected. What was she talking about? I hope for one wish for you, Mio-chan said again. I want to be able to walk with you to school, he said. Rion was soon to be going to elementary school. His sister was silent. Rion wondered why she had suddenly gone quiet. After a while, she looked up and shook her head. Next year, when you start elementary school, Rion, I'll be in junior high. We won't be going to the same school. She paused. But if I do go back to that school, then I want to be the same as you, to walk to school together, Rion, and to play with you. Her her junior high school uniform was hanging on the wall. He was sure she would never die. But then she did. The last time he spoke to her was only a few hours earlier. She reached out a hand to his and in a barely audible whisper she said, Rion, I'm sorry I scared you, but I had a good time. Rion remembered thinking that even up till the moment she died, she was always thinking about others. Like she said, seeing her suffer was indeed very scary. Rion couldn't stop crying from fear, but also from not wanting to say goodbye. Her funeral was at the beginning of April. A spring rain was falling as Rion sat beside his father. His mother was a pale shell of her former self. When a guest came up to her, she merely bowed, her eyes vacant. You stay well, okay? And be with mom and dad always. Rion finally understood what his sister's word meant. Her junior high school uniform. Her junior high school uniform hung in her hospital room for a year. They had hung it in there, in the hope that she would one day start, but she never wore it, not even once. You are really lucky to be so healthy. The first time his mother said this was when Rion was in first grade in elementary school, the same age Mio had been when she fell sick. Rion had joined the local football team and was beginning to enjoy learning a new sport. And then, as Rion was about to go out to play, ball in hand, his mother said, if only she had half the energy you have. Rion was caught off guard. He couldn't think of what to say. Ugh, he managed. You say? His mother mocked and lowered his eyes. They had been told of Mio's condition while his mother was pregnant with Rion. Simultaneously monitoring Mio's treatment and taking care of baby Rion overwhelmed her for several years, and Rion knew she resented having to manage both of them at the same time. Photos of his sister were on display on the far wall of the living room. There was a photo of her last piano recital before she went into the hospital, a photo of the whole family, a photo of Mion, her mother in the hospital just before she passed away, and over by the window, they kept the exquisite dollhouse her parents had bought for her and which she had loved so much. Even if I'm healthy and living with them, that wouldn't comfort his parents. Rion wasn't sure when he had realized this, but he had become certain of it. He was more sporty than his peers, but even that made his mother wonder why. Why is the younger brother so much stronger than his older sister? If only a little bit of that good health could rub off on Mio. Ryo-kun's quite amazing, isn't he? I heard the scouts coming from a club team to check him out, one of the other mothers had said to Rion's mother, but Rion's mother downplayed it. He's not that good, she said, shaking her head. He does it because he enjoys it, and it's not as if that's what his father and I want for him. Rion was sure he would continue to play football in a club team with his friends and go to the same junior high school together. But when he was in 6th grade, his mother handed him a brochure. Have a look at this, she said. The brochure was for a school in Hawaii. When he saw it was a boarding school, Rion's heart froze. He despised the very thought of it. I thought it would be a huge opportunity for you, his mother said. He stared at him solemnly and suddenly realized his mother wanted him far away. Wow, a school in Hawaii? Some professional players went to that school, right? Rion, you're amazing. The more his friends commented, the harder it got for him to back down. He himself started to think maybe this was all for the best. I'm sure it's a good school, but what did Rion say about it? He said he would like to go. He overheard his parents talking one evening. His father had just got home from work. Are you sure? He asked. Kids still in elementary school don't know what they want. They just do what their parents tell them. Are you sure that's what he said? He did. He said he would like to go. Listening to his father, Rion thought, no, Dad, you're wrong. Elementary school kids do know what they want. Even I can see that if I stay here any moment longer, it will only cause you both more pain. And I feel the same way. I want to get away from you. I don't know what to do, Mio. I'm sorry. I kept well, but I wasn't any use. His mother had come to visit him at Christmas and bake him a cake, and then she had gone home. She had not said a word about taking him back with her for the New Year's holiday. It was late afternoon, and he was lying on his bed in his dorm. He stared at the dead mirror, hoping it would start to shine. He gave it a stroke. Come on, shine, mirror, shine. And when it did, it began to glisten with its rainbow colors. He broke into a wide smile, and he put his watch and ever so slowly thrust his hand inside. A distant howling was heard. Aki-chan, where are you? It's time soon. We need to go home. The howling has started. It's okay, Ureshino. There's nothing we can do. Why don't we go home now? Just us. Time's running out. He tried to go into the mirror but was pulled back. This is bad, he told himself. This is really, really bad. Subaru, over here. We've got to get Kokoro in. He turned to face Kokoro's mirror. Kokoro is the only one of us who didn't come today, so she won't be forced back and eaten. We've got to get Kokoro to help. Honestly, he had known all along that the Wolf Queen's insistence on calling them Little Red Riding Hoods was completely fake. There are 7 of us. According to the fairy tale, the key had to be inside the grandfather's clock. This piece of knowledge that Rion had kept to himself, thinking it was he who would get his wish granted. Kokoro's forehead ached. She felt a massive blow to her face, as if she was practicing on a horizontal bar and accidentally smacked her face against it. At that moment, Rion's shape started to break up. She heard a voice. Your wish. Whose voice? She didn't know. She wasn't sure if she had actually heard it or imagined it. And then she heard another voice, a child's, a girl's. I'm alright, so take her and can you see it? A voice had intruded while she was experiencing someone else's memory. Kokoro's eyes widened in astonishment. She pulled her arm out from the under the bed and turned around. She screamed, Wolf Queen! The Wolf Queen had pushed open the door and standing outside in the hallway, looking the same as ever, a pinafore dress with frills and a wolf mask. Yet, in the darkness of the castle, now engulfed by some weird force, she seemed different. Kokoro's immediate instinct was to move away. But from the small room, there was no other exit. The Wolf Queen stood, as if blocking the door. Kokoro got to her feet and was about to push past the Wolf Queen and said, Wait! She let out an exaggerated sigh and folded her arm. This is the second time you tried to run away, isn't it? I remember you on the very first day. Well, what do you expect? What do you expect when there's wolf lurking about who is known to have gobbled up 6 living creatures? Kokoro had the feeling that this little wolf had created herself in the image of that wolf, and all the while Kokoro had been trying her best to avoid any attention from her, but now I never expected we would actually be having a conversation, Kokoro thought. Just moments earlier, she had been terrified out of her wits, yet now she was feeling so much calmer. When she looked closely at the Wolf Queen's dress, she had to reconsider her theory. The hem was ragged and torn, the frills were ripped and frayed, her entire outfit, including the wolf mask, was damaged and dirty. Even I cannot do anything about it. Once the rules are broken, it cannot be stopped, said the Wolf Queen. That was the condition when I created it, and there's always a price to pay. The Wolf Queen pointed the muzzle of her wolf mask towards Kokoro. You, however, will not be eaten. You have had a narrow escape, but the others, they're buried. You saw them, didn't you? Under those X markers? Ah! Kokoro thought and shut her eyes. The X did remind her of grave markers. You noticed? The Wolf Queen asked with a drawl. Kokoro thought she knew what she was asking. She replied, I think I did. I see. Could you tell me something, Wolf Queen? Now what? We are able to meet, aren't we? The Wolf Queen fell silent for a moment. As ever, I've lost connection with the server. Great stuff, guys. Great stuff. Oh, come on! You bastard of a game. What is this? Uh-huh. God damn it! You stupid game. Shopee, shut up. Guys, it's okay. Well, yeah, I thought so when I saw you log off. I knew it's not normal. Oh, nine. Hell yeah. Damn it. Well, the good thing is nobody is in here. Okay, oh, okay, you are in here. Oh my god, yeah. By the way, guys, oh my god, I forgot. I don't know if I. Oh man, that sucks. You know, last night I was doing the sorry, the re-clear for P1S, and I used a ninja and I got like 100k. above Hyoshoranyu twice. And I didn't take screenshot. I forgot to take screenshot. I forgot to take anything because I was tired and I forgot everything. It's terrible. It's terrible. Eh? Oh wait, hang on. Oh, wrong. Alright, let's continue. As ever, Kokoro couldn't see her expression behind the mask. Maybe she didn't actually have a face. The lonely keeper of the castle in the mirror. This wolf mask might be the only face this girl's ever had. Was she an enemy or an ally? Kokoro wasn't at all sure. Kokoro pushed her line of questioning a bit further. I don't mean immediately, but at some point in the future, we'll probably be able to meet, won't we? Only if you get home safely now, the Wolf Queen said. Kokoro took this as a yes, so it's true, she thought, mulling over it. It was not my intention for all of you to be eaten. The Wolf Queen aimed her muzzle petulantly at the ceiling. She turned back to Kokoro. The rest depends on you, she said. Oh, by the way, Aki is currently in the wishing room. Then she vanished. You have had a narrow escape. The Wolf Queen's words rang inside her. Aki's room was closest to the grand foyer along the hallway. Kokoro took a deep breath. No hesitating this time, she said quietly. She was going to save Aki. She was going to bring that tricky girl back. To stay in the castle past the agreed curfew was an act of suicide, and yet she had done it anyway. Aki's words always seemed to have a spiteful edge. So our memories vanish. So what? It's okay, isn't it? If a wish comes true. If someone finds the key, I mean. If we can't see each other in the outside world, all we have left at the end is our memories, no? Isn't it a bit of a waste? Wow, that's really something. Parents considering your future and stuff. Not like our parents, right, Kokoro? Gently, she turned the handle to Aki's room and pushed open the door. The wardrobe was open. She looked around quickly for the X inside. There it was. She placed the tip of her forefinger over the mark, and Aki's memories come flooding in. The smell of incense. Aki was sitting in front of the commemorative photograph of her recently deceased grandmother. She was wearing her school uniform, sitting beside her mother and cousin. The man seated beside her mother was her stepfather. Her mother always said that her father had been totally self-absorbed and had left them when she was still very young. If I hadn't got pregnant with you, she said, we would probably never have got married. In the end, we broke up, so there we are. This was how she explained things to her daughter. Despite this, whenever their relatives got together, she would go on about his sports business in Chiba, provided all the equipment for the local teams that went on to play in the national baseball tournaments and in Koshien Stadium. The commemorative photograph showed her grandmother when she was much younger. A photograph. Her uncles complained that the last time she had a decent portrait was taken a long time ago, and so the only photos they had of her were out of date. When Aki dyed her hair, her grandmother had let out a shriek. Aki was sure she was going to shout at her, but actually her reaction was joyful. What a lovely color, she said, and Aki was both deflated and happy. Her grandmother had been a lively character who loved a joke, a total opposite of Aki's mother. So different that it made Aki wonder how could she possibly have given birth to her. Don't let your mother find out, her grandmother said whenever she gave her any money. If she finds out, she'll spend it. This is our little secret. Akiko, just you and me, she said. She added with a clumsy wink. When Aki introduced her to Atsushi, a, stu- a college student she had met through telephone dating, her grandmother's only reaction was to exclaim, "Goodness gracious!" before presenting him with the senbei crackers, green tea, and pickled vegetable. Aki was embarrassed by her old folks' hospitality, but Atsushi enjoyed it. "I didn't expect you would introduce me to your family so quickly," Atsushi said. "Sorry," Aki said. "Is it a bit depressing?" "Not at all," he said. Atsushi was 23, but never had a girlfriend. "You're my first," he said, "and I want to look after you. I don't have much money, but I do want to get married." But Atsushi didn't come to her grandmother's funeral. They hardly communicated these days. She would send him a message on his pager but get no reply. "Atsushi-kun, the only person I really wanted to be there." "You poor child." This was from an old woman who said she was a friend of her grandmother. She turned to Aki's mother and scowled. "You have never paid her any attention." Aki wanted her to mind her own business. "But my mother's house is the only place for me to go," thought Aki. "So what's going to become of me?" Aki was back from the funeral and alone in her bedroom when she heard a familiar voice. "Michael, Michael, where are you?" He had come looking for her mother, even though Aki's mother had said she was extremely busy and would be back home later. Aki hoped he had given up and leave, but it only made him keener. "Michael! Michael! Hey! Michael! She's not here!" He barged suddenly into her room, and Aki drew up her legs on the bed and screamed, "She's not here! She's not home yet!" "Oh, Akiko, you're here." Aki's stepfather had forced the sliding door to her Japanese-style room and now staring at her. His necktie was askew, the buttons on his shirt undone. His face looked flushed and his breath stank of alcohol. Aki shrank further. "Oh God," she thought. Usually she hid in her mother's wardrobe, staying totally quiet while she was around. She made a sudden dash to get out of the room. "Wait, where are you going?" He tried to catch her by the shirt and cajole her into staying. When she ignored him, she grabbed her bare arm, his sweaty palm finding a firm grip. Her legs began to tremble. "No!" Her father pulled her towards her, clamping down her arms. "Atsushi-kun!" screamed Aki. Sorry, wait, hang on. "Atsushi-kun!" screamed Aki. He slipped his hand inside the neck of her school shirt. With his other hand covered her mouth. "Help me!" breathed Aki. She began to kick and kick. She turned and managed to knee him between the legs, broke free, and fled into the living room. Propping the sliding door shut with the broom handle, she grabbed the telephone sitting on a small table in the corner, knocking over the memo pad, calendar, and pen stand. She struggled to recall the correct number she needed to send a message. Frantically converting the letters of her message into appropriate numbers. 41 ta 33 su 24 ke 44 de. Each set of numbers standing for a Japanese syllable. "Tasukete! Help!" "Akiko! Akiko!" shouted her stepfather from beyond the sliding door, shaking it so violently she thought it might break. She threw the phone on the floor and let out a long scream. At that moment, a small but distinct light caught her eye. A small mirror lying on the floor had begun to shine. Usually, it was the mirror in her bedroom that shone, but this light came from her mother's small hand mirror. The Wolf Queen had told them she wouldn't be allowed any mirror to shine if adults were around. Akiko! A roar came from behind the sliding door, which her stepfather was vigorously rattling. It wouldn't take much before it came crashing to the floor. She placed her hand on the small round face of the shining mirror and let herself slip inside. It was a small mirror, but strangely enough, her whole body passed through it smoothly. She looked around and realized she was back in the grand foyer of the castle. Her heart was pounding. Her arms and legs still covered in goosebumps. The top buttons of her shirt were ripped open. The Wolf Queen was standing in front of her. She was holding a small hand mirror, the size of the one Aki had just passed through, and it was shining in rainbow colors. Wolf Queen! Aki's breathing was still ragged. Why had she made her mother's mirror shine? She allowed her to come here even when an adult had been around. I had to step in because you were in a tight spot, the Wolf Queen said. Aki knew that the Wolf Queen had seen everything. The Wolf Queen cocked her head, not in her usual sneering way, but in the manner of a small girl. You mean you rather I didn't help you? No. Aki shook her head over and over. Not at all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now tears came, flowing down her cheeks. Her body started to tremble. She reached out to hold the Wolf Queen's hand. The Wolf Queen didn't refuse it. It was warm and smooth and tiny. Holding it made Aki feel as if she too could be pure and beautiful. Can't I live here properly? Aki asked, shoulders heaving. Her grandmother's face misted over in the distance. That's completely impossible. The Wolf Queen had resumed her customary arrogance, but Aki gritted her teeth. But I really don't want to go back. Spending every moment trying to avoid her stepfather, friends, her school, she hated it all. I was always the best player on the volleyball team, she thought, and it irritated me to see other girls just standing there. Stop being so spaced out, I used to shout. Perhaps I overdid it a bit. We would gather the younger, less experienced girls, and we older ones would surround them, demand them to tell us exactly what the hell they thought they were doing. Every club used to do it. It wasn't as if I was the only one. Yet before I knew it, those kids and everyone else were telling me they wouldn't put up with my attitude. My presence was destroying the volleyball team. They told me I was a bully. But that wasn't what I intended. And yet it turned out I was the one they wanted out. There was nothing for it but to leave the team. That's completely impossible, the Wolf Queen said again, but she seemed to be keeping something back. She didn't shake off Aki's hand, but instead held it tightly, which made Aki very happy. Aki was crouched on the sofa in the game room, and then Kokoro walked in. She gazed at Aki as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. She was staring at Aki's school uniform. Aki-chan, do you go to Yukishina number 5 junior high? Aki slowly followed Kokoro's eye line and looked down at her uniform. Yes, Aki said, Yukishina number 5. Kokoro's eyes had widened with astonishment. A few moments later, Masamune and Subaru came through the door, one behind the other. It's the exact same uniform worn by the girls at my school, Masamune said, joining in the conversation. We are all of us, at the same school, which means we could all help each other. Aki took Masamune's words the most seriously, because, she said to herself, I am the one who really wants help. There was no answer that day from Atsushi-kun to the message she had left him, no reaction to my desperate call for help. Aki realized for the first time, though she knew his pager number, he had never actually given her his phone number. She had told him all her problem with her stepfather. Atsushi had promised that he would protect her, that he would never let anything like that happen again. But these guys, they'll really help me. They'll stand up to it all with me. But on that January day, when she had gone over to the nurse's office wanting to support Masamune, truly wanting to do what she could, no one else had turned up. It had been so cold. Looking out of the window, the nurse's office at the pale sky, Aki felt betrayed. Ma'am, is it true that Aki has come to school today? Outside the door of the nurse's office, she overheard the voice of Misuzu from the volleyball team. It made her want to run. The nurse was warming her hands over the portable heater, and Aki clung to her, weeping. Please tell her I'm not here. Even if they all come, please tell them I'm here. Please don't tell them I'm here. Aki crawled into a small bed in the office, pulled the covers over her, and lay there trembling. She did know, that she was behaving badly. The other girls all had a good laugh, placing prank calls, telephone sex lines, and they acted as a group. No one ever did that sort of thing without the others. I'm not like Misuzu and the others anymore. Not at all. I found out that the kids at the school didn't betray me, but that doesn't make it any better. The fact remains we can't see each other outside. I can be a bit slow, and I don't understand all that stuff about parallel worlds, but what you're saying is that we can never meet up in outside world, Ryon said. Yep, Masamune nodded. You mean we cannot help each other? That's right, we cannot help each other. The month of March was almost over. Please make my life a bit more tolerable. Make my mother stronger. Please kill my stepfather. Please take me back to a time when the girls in the volleyball club didn't all hate me. If none of these wishes can come true, I'm going to stay in the castle forever. I made up my mind the day before it was all due to be over. I hid inside the wardrobe in my room, and I waited for 5 o'clock to come and go. Aki-chan, where are you? I heard Ureshino calling my name while he looked frantically for me. I'm sorry, Ureshino. Everyone, I'm sorry. I cannot do this on my own anymore. I'm sorry, got mixed up in this. I don't want to go home. I don't want to go on living. I just cannot bear it anymore. I heard the howling. An overpowering light began to fill the castle. The wardrobe door was being pulled open. A wolf, with its mouth wide open, was staring at me. Please don't run away. Come over here. Give me your hand. Aki, please. Aki, keep breathing. Aki, it's going to be okay. Aki! I suddenly noticed the door is closed. Somebody is banging on it, over and over, calling my name. Miss Kokoro, it's okay. Aki-chan, we can help each other. We can meet. We can see each other again. So you have to leave. You've got to keep going and grow up to be an adult. Please, Aki. I'm in the future, where you are too, where you are all grown up. The voice came closer. In her confused mind, Aki thought suddenly, what the hell? Kokoro sounded as though she was crying and pounding the door. The time! We all live in the years. They are all different, Kokoro said. We are not in parallel worlds at all. We are all students at the Yukishina number 5 junior high, but we all live in different time periods. We are all living in the same world. It all started with something Tojo-san had said. When are you moving? The 1st of April. Very soon then. Can't help it. Dad wanted to move in March, but the first day But the 1st of April is a Saturday this year, so he has the day off this year. Something about this statement stayed with Kokoro. Come to think of it, the other kids in the castle were living through different days of the week. They didn't match. Nor did the day of the week when the opening ceremony school was held. Nor did the holidays like coming of age day. She should consider all this earlier. The weather was different. The shopping centers are different, as was the geography of the district, as were their teachers and the number of classes in each school. But the entirety of the worlds were the same. She first began to notice it when she was experiencing Ureshino's memory. That, in January, when she thought she had stood up by them, while she was waiting for the others to turn up, Ureshino ate his rice ball. It was a Sunday. She felt content and contemplated the sky. Just then, Ureshino's mother arrived. Someone was with her, a kindly-looking woman with a tiny gray streak in her hair. Wrinkles formed around her eyes. When she smiled, Ureshino called her Kitajima-sensei. She was different from the Miss Kitajima Kokoro knew, but she knew instantly who she was. She was just much older than the woman Kokoro knew. In Kokoro's reality, Miss Kitajima was much younger teacher with no gray hair or wrinkles. As she considered this, she remembered something else. They had been hanging out in the castle, and she was talking to Ureshino about Miss Kitajima. "She's so pretty," Miss Kitajima, Kokoro had said. Pretty? Ureshino seemed to have his heart set on any eligible female within sight, and Miss Kitajima would certainly fit the bill, and so this reaction was odd. Kokoro had wondered about it for such a long while. In Ureshino's reality, Miss Kitajima was not the attractive young teacher that Kokoro knew. She realized there was something about Masamune's memories too that had bothered her. They will not bail on me, I know it. He was talking to himself, not to anyone else. His voice was wobbly. "They're gonna come, I know it." The hand kept rubbing his back. In this memory, she had much longer hair than the Miss Kitajima Kokoro knew. This was again an older Miss Kitajima, which is why she wanted to probe each of their memories to get to show her how it was for each of them. Subaru's Walkman, for example. Subaru took a music player out of his bag connected to earphones, a model Kokoro had never seen before. In the memory, Subaru had been listening to cassette tapes. This player was far heavier and sturdier than anything she had seen anyone carrying around them. But what really confirmed it all was her experience of Fuka's memory. When she played the piano, there was a calendar beside her with the date of the summer piano competition marked in red. The calendar year was 2019, not 2005, which was last year for Kokoro. And when she entered Aki's memory, she had further confirmation. Nowadays, even students own cell phones, but Aki communicated by pager. When Kokoro was younger, her mother had a pager, which she used to keep in touch with her workplace and with Kokoro's father, so she was fairly familiar with how it worked. It wasn't a device to talk on, but to send a one-way message. Pocket bell was a Japanese term for it, a term her mother used to use. As Aki had tried to type in the message to the pager, in her haste, she knocked over a calendar on the table. The calendar read 1991. If Kokoro's match up, all the other realities, an even clearer timeline would emerge. She was sure. For Aki, Kokoro was from the future. For Fuka, Kokoro was living in the past. I never said you cannot meet up or cannot help each other. It's time you people work things out. Think about it. The Wolf Queen's words were on the nail. We can read. We won't look as we do now. We'll be a different age. But it's not we all we at all. But it's not true at all that we won't be able to see each other. Aki-chan! Kokoro opened up the door to the body of the grandfather's clock and called out. The key was hidden behind the pendulum. She took hold of the key and spied a small keyhole behind the clock. This is where it is, Kokoro thought. The wishing room. They looked all over. All this time it was hidden in an obvious place. Of course. Kokoro inserted the key into the hole. There was a creaking sound as the back of the clock cracked open. Kokoro closed her eyes, made her wish. Save Aki! Please! She shouted. Please save Aki! Please forget that she broke the rules! Light spilled out. Not the muddy light from earlier, but the brutal, overpowering light, but the milky, soft light that enveloped Kokoro. Aki! Kokoro shouted desperately into the light. Hang in there! We can all meet each other! Kokoro recalled the scene, the wolf and the 7 young goats when the mother goat opens up the grandfather's clock where the youngest goat is hiding. Aki, come out! Kokoro wished and reached her hand through the open door. Don't run away! Come over here! Give me your hand, Aki, please! She was shouting at the top of her voice. It's okay, Aki. Aki-chan, we can help each other. We can meet. We can see each other again. So you have to leave. You have to keep going and grow up to be an adult. Please, Aki. I'm in the future. In the future where you are all grown up. Kokoro felt something soft and warm. Someone was grasping her hand. Kokoro shut her eyes tight and grabbed the hand back as firmly as she could. No way, I'm letting you go. Kokoro? Yes, it's me, Kokoro. Her face was wet with tears. Aki's hand. She would never, ever let it go. I came to get you. Kokoro, I'm sorry. It doesn't matter. Kokoro was shouting. Her voice welling up from deep inside her. It just doesn't matter. You've got to come back. Her voice cracked. With every ounce of strength, she pulled back the hand towards her. At that moment, Kokoro, a voice called out. It's not Aki's, but from someone behind her. She barely had time to think before she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned around with a jolt. It was Fuka. Fuka and Subaru and Masamune and Ureshino and Rion. They had all come back. Her wish had been granted. Is it Aki? Masamune asked, and Kokoro nodded. Yes! The short exchange was enough. While Kokoro thrust her hand beyond the clock, the friends took hold of her and each other in a line like in a tug of war, and they yanked with each ounce of strength they could muster. Heave ho! He heard Subaru call out. We are not letting go of you, even if it means we all die. She felt something slipping. They all shut their eyes and pulled harder. This wasn't the wolf and the 7 young goats, but more like the grim story of the enormous turnip. Kokoro thought. And suddenly, she felt a weight lifted off her. We can do it, she said to herself. Here we go, Aki! Heave! Ho! They shouted. The tops of Aki's finger began to emerge from behind the clock. The momentum sent them all tumbling backwards down the stairs. At the top of the stairs in the grandfather's clock lay Aki. Aki! Kokoro shouted and raced back upstairs. Aki, you idiot! Both Masamune and Rion said. Seriously, you deserve a good kick in the butt, added Rion. Aki looked as if she had just emerged from underwater. Her face was all wet. She has been crying so hard and for so long. I'm so sorry. Aki managed to speak through her sobbed. Eyes bloodshot, she looked at each of them in turn. I'm so sorry. You complete idiot! This from Fuka, echoing the boys. Fuka's face was just as flushed and wet with tears as Aki. What are we going to do? She squealed. We've used up our one wish to rescue you. I'm truly sorry. Thank God!
Fuka said and clung to Aki's neck in tight hug. Thank God you are all right. Aki's eyes widened, but they were blank. Arms wrapped around Fuka. She gazed at each of them again. Perhaps she noticed that they weren't actually angry. She let out a long, deep sigh. Without warning, they became aware of the sound of hands softly clapping. They knew. Without even turning around who it was, they knew that the last hour of friendship was here. They knew that they were ready. Since the wish had been granted, the group would now lose all memory of having even been to the castle. The moment of farewell had finally arrived. Wolf Queen, as one, they turned to face her. Well done indeed. She was standing at the bottom of the staircase in the grand foyer, daintily clapping her small hands. Closure. Subaru was in 1985. Aki, 1992. Kokoro and Rion, 2006. Masamune, 2013. Fuka, 2020. Ureshino? Question mark. They checked with each other to see what year they were living in and where. In the trash game room, they spread out a sheet of paper and wrote it all down. I don't remember what year it is, Ureshino said, and the rest knew exactly where he was coming from. Sometimes you could be well aware of the day of the week and month and scarcely aware of the actual year. A stir swept through them as they digested each other's details, particularly the moment they realized that Subaru was in 1985. That was back in Emperor Showa's era, Masamune said, and Subaru replied, Sure, sounds about right. But he looked confused, and Kokoro realized even the mention of Showa didn't click with him. Then, Subaru said, Didn't the world end in 1999? You know, after the Nostradamus great prophecy? Well, it's a relief to know that it didn't. He smiled and no one knew if he was joking or not, or whether he had actually believed it. Of course it never ended, Masamune said cautiously. I mean, when you were playing my state-of-art video games, don't you ever think anything was weird? Maybe the screen was so clear and sharp. Back in your time, Subaru, weren't consoles really simple machines? I never played them much, so I just thought that that's what they must be like. You said your friend made the game, so I thought it wasn't on sale yet, and you got a hold of an advanced copy or something. Me too. I did think it was quite old. The Nintendo DS you had, Masamune, was not the one that I have. Kokoro had convinced herself that if parallel worlds existed, it would be possible that the gaming devices would not be identical. You're talking about the first generation Nintendo DS, aren't you? The one that I'm using is the third generation DS. Masamune scrutinized Subaru as if studying his features for the first time. I just don't believe it. Subaru and I, 29 years apart in age? The paper recording all the timelines are now filled with myriad calculations. You're pretty sharp though, Kokoro, to notice. I never ever thought for a moment that we didn't come from the same time period. I can't believe it, Leon said. But it does seem more likely than the parallel world idea Masamune had. Yeah, Masamune said, frowning a bit. Sorry I scared you. Look, aren't there 7 years between each of us? Fuka laid a finger across each of their years. 7 might be an especially significant number here. There's the 7 of us, and there's 7 hiding places taken from the story of the wolf and the 7 young goats. You're right. Once they establish this fact, all kinds of the other things become clear. For instance, all the different iterations of the shopping center, the location of McDonald's. Aki came from the Minami Tokyo city of the past. In the future, Kareo probably developed into an even bigger shopping mall with its own movie theater, just as Masamune and Fuka described it. So Ureshino must be from between Aki and Kokoro's years. There's a 14-year gap instead of 7, so Ureshino should be from the year 1999, no? Eh? Really? Ureshino looked pensive for a moment, but then shook his head. Nah, I don't think so. I mean, I was born in 2013. What? They claimed. So that means... Fuka said, gazing off as she computed the numbers. That's for you, Ureshino. That's right there, 2027. You should have told us from the start. 2027! That's really incredible! You are from way off in the future. Subaru said, looking stunned. I guess I am, Ureshino said, tilting his head. Listening to this exchange, Kokoro said quietly, just wow. In the 2006 that she lived in, Ureshino was not even born yet. It was so hard to wrap her mind around it. So Kokoro, Rion and I are the only ones with the 14 years between us, Aki murmured slowly. How come? After such prolonged crying, Aki's face was still pale, and Kokoro could sense she was getting back to her normal self. She was relieved that Aki was now contributing. I have no idea, Kokoro replied after a while, shaking her head. It would make more sense if there was somebody in between us. It's sort of strange as it is, but I can see how it might work, Fuka said slowly, and everyone looked at her. Fuka glanced at Aki sitting cross-legged on the floor. Do you remember the last day of February when there was no one else in the castle? It was just the two of us. We called the Wolf Queen, but she didn't appear either. Yeah, I do. Ah! Kokoro thought. The two of them had a strange relationship in the early days, but towards the beginning of March, she had realized how they were getting on so much better. And she thought it was quite odd, and wondered at what point they had made up. That must be the leap year. Ah! Every 4 years there's an extra days. On the 29th of the February, Aki is in 1992 and mine is in 2020. But no one else had one. So for you, it was suddenly the 1st of March, no? You're right. We are the only two who gain a day. Fuka's use of gain was a bit odd. As she listened, Kokoro began to work something out. Holidays too, she said. Holidays? In January, we discussed what days the school opening ceremony was. We started talking about the coming of age day, remember? Subaru said it was on the 15th, and we talked about how in parallel worlds it would fall on different days for all of us. Back then, Subaru and Aki had said coming of age day is the 15th, isn't it? I didn't think it was a 2-day holiday. The opening ceremony was one thing, but I thought coming of age day would be the same for everyone. So, back in Aki's time, they hadn't yet linked holidays with weekends. I had heard that that's how they used to do it. Is that really what happened? They moved holidays? Yeah, the Happy Monday system. Happy Monday? Aki exclaimed, then burst out laughing. What a silly name! Kokoro, are you playing games with me? No, I promise I'm not. I didn't make it up. It really exists. Kokoro wasn't used to being laughed at and rose to defend herself, but again, at the same time she thought, good, Aki is quickly getting back to her feisty old self again. One more thing, back in your day, Aki and Subaru, you went to school on Saturdays, didn't you? Fuka said, Kokoro startled. The system of 2 days off per week. Until 3rd grade in elementary school, Kokoro's school had every second Saturday off, and she really enjoyed having an extra day off every other week. Once, Aki had mentioned how she and her boyfriend had been stopped by a truancy officer while they were out in town. Kokoro had thought it was because they looked as if they might have been out to cause trouble, but the real reason was that Aki's time, they still had lessons every Saturday, and she should have been at school. When it came to this, Aki and Subaru's reaction were different. What? Saturday was going to be a day off? Yeah, Aki said. That's what they said. One Saturday a month would be off. But I haven't been to school much, so I wasn't really thinking about it. She carried on thinking aloud. So in the period you're in, you never go to school on Saturdays? Wow, we are really living in different times. Yeah. Kokoro nodded and suddenly had a new thought. For you people, there are still number 2 and number 4 junior highs in Minami Tokyo City? What do you mean? Fuka answered. They aren't anymore because the number of children in the area had dropped. When Kokoro had made the visit to the alternative school, the teacher in charge there had said the same thing. She said that after the cozy, relaxed atmosphere of elementary school, there were plenty of kids who had trouble fitting in when they started junior high, especially with number 5 junior high. Since it had grown so huge due to the reorganization and merging of schools. Back when Aki had mentioned possibly repeating a year, Kokoro had asked if she planned to move to another nearby school, and Aki had said, "You mean like number 4 junior high?" At the time it had struck Kokoro so odd since there wasn't a number 4 school anymore. "Seriously? Is that right?" Urashino unexpectedly chimed in. He was staring at them, eyes wide. "I always wonder why our school is called number 5 when there was no number 4. Now I see. The schools all have odd numbers now, so I thought maybe even numbers were unlucky or something. Isn't that an insult to all even numbered schools around the country?" Aki let out a long sigh. "The whole thing is so weird," she said. "You guys are about the same age as me. We are also alike, but Kokoro, you, and Ureshino, everybody, in fact, apart from Subaru, you're all from the future. It feels so strange to me to think that you're all from the past. Aki, I just can't get my head around it." "Come to think of it though, you and Rion are from the same year," Subaru said suddenly. He was right. And now they knew the full story explained the uneasy feeling Kokoro had earlier. That there are just too many dropouts from the same school. And how, though he was also from 2006, Rion was actually studying abroad, was still included in the group. "I think it's because I really wanted to go to Yukishina number 5, Rion muttered. Exactly as the Wolf Queen had said to him before. "Maybe she summoned me here because I wanted to make friends in a Japanese school, to let me meet Kokoro." "We really might have met," Kokoro said. Rion raised his head, Kokoro explained. "In the nurse's office back in January, in the beginning of the 3rd year." It warmed Kokoro's heart to think that Rion were from the same period, Hawaii and Japan. If only the distance had not separated them, she might have really met Rion in the nurse's office that day. And yet, if he had not gone abroad to school, Rion might have been an ordinary kid attending Krishna number 5 and would never have had been invited to the castle. You never knew how chance could change things. "Well, we are all going to forget all of this anyway," Kokoro said. "Even if Rion come back to Japan, they pass each other on the streets, neither would remember who the other one was." The very thought was painful to her. "Wolf Queen!" Fuka turned around and looked at the Wolf Queen, who had been sitting silently in front of the fireplace for some time. "How much time do we have left?" "I'll give you just under an hour," the Wolf Queen said, as if thoroughly bored by them all now. They watched as she got to her feet and the hem of her dress swishing. "So you'll be better get ready by then." The Wolf Queen had arrived among them, gently applauding, and appeared as collected as ever. Now that Aki had been rescued and the Wolf Queen's dress, which has been in tatters, was back in its usual pristine condition. Before they knew it, the darkened castle was now suddenly bright again. "Well done," she said with a touch of sarcasm. No one knew quite exactly how to react. Only Kokoro was brave enough to speak. "Wolf Queen," she said. The others stared at the Wolf Queen, a look of fear frozen on their faces. Kokoro had not seen the version of huge roof for herself, so she didn't know the details of what it had done to them, but it was clear that the others had experienced something unearthly before they were buried underneath their X mark. Just from the intensity of the house, she sensed it was indescribable, and the kids themselves were not fully conscious of it. Why all grimacing? The Wolf Queen said dismissively. Don't worry, nothing will happen to you. I really didn't want to do it. Anyway, I never would have had to if somebody had not broken the rules. The Wolf Queen cast a glance at the newly rescued Aki. Think about what you did. I'm so sorry. Aki's face still pale, and she started trembling again. The Wolf Queen nodded, accepting her apology. Well, you're all safe now. Everything's out of kilter, Rion said. I mean, I was so frightened, scared to death. The Wolf Queen ignored him and pointed her muzzle towards Kokoro. Somehow, she seemed to be smiling. Well, you did well to work out what's going on here, to understand that this is a castle that transcends the rule of time. Kokoro nodded, still confused. Her eyes met the girl's through the wolf mask. You say something that led me to realize it will be possible for us to see each other. We are all in the same school, but from different periods across time. Kokoro still remembered the question Rion had once asked. It was the day Aki turned up in her school uniform, and they began to realize they were actually from the same school, same junior high. You've done this before, bringing other Little Red Riding Hoods here, telling them that they could have a wish granted, haven't you? Were those Little Red Riding Hoods also students at Yukishina 5 Junior High? Even every few years you bring up a group of them here, don't you? Rion had asked. To this question, the Wolf Queen had replied, every few years. I think it's more consistent than that. Still cryptic, but she meant it literally. She still summoned children here with a fixed number of years between them. Not being able to meet, not able to help each other. Neither one was true, so long as they uncovered the truth. The castle will be closing as pre-stated. Unfortunately, that will be today, not tomorrow, the Wolf Queen said haughtily. They were prepared for this, but even so it was hard to hear. So our memories will disappear. This from Fuka. We really forget absolutely everything, right? The Wolf Queen said categorically. As I explained to you all earlier, since you have found the key and the wish now have been granted, you will no longer remember a thing. She gazed at them steadily. However, she paused and raised her forefinger. I will grant you extra time. Extra time. This is the castle in the mirror, where rules of time are fluid. I can give you a moment of pause before each of you go back through your mirror. But ready? Please make sure you don't leave anything behind. It was just like that closing ceremony at the school year, Kokoro thought, when the teachers instructed them to make sure they all took their belongings home from their lockers and desks. Check your own rooms, check the game room, the Wolf Queen said. From tomorrow, you will no longer have access. For now, I have to stop the flow of time outside. You will be able to return to your world by 7 o'clock Japan time. Your parents may tell you off, but they won't be too cross. It felt a little odd. While surrounded by scattered ornaments of wrecked castle, to hear her sounding so concerned for them, but it seemed appropriate. Don't we have to tidy up here? Ureshino asked. The pillars were cracked, the walls soiled, and overturned furniture and crockery scattered everywhere. The castle looked like it had been hit by a tornado, and they felt uneasy about leaving it like that. Ureshino continued hesitantly. So, are you okay for us to just pick up our own stuff? Won't it be a huge job for you to clean up the mess yourself? It won't be a problem, not at all, the Wolf Queen replied with a dismissive wave of her thin arm. Then she looked more directly at Ureshino. You are a pretty decent guy, aren't you? The group exchanged an astonished look. This moment of humanity was not they had come to expect from their wolf. Okay, I have a suggestion, Ureshino said confidently. Before we gather up our things, I want you all to come to the game room. I'm still very confused by everything, and I'll love you to explain it, Kokoro-chan. Okay? Kokoro said. So they went back to the trash game room and Kokoro picked up the sheet of paper on top of the overturned table and then began to explain how each of them existed in different time. Jeez, what the hell? Each of them had gone to their room to ensure they didn't leave anything behind. While Masamune stayed in the game room rummaging through the rubble for his video games, some of the consoles had been crushed underneath the overturned table and the cases with games looked utterly squashed. Sighing and tutting, he placed them one by one inside his backpack, wondering if he could return them to the manufacturer. If I'd known this was going to happen, I would never have brought them. He continued to mutter and grumble under his breath when he heard his name. Masamune! He turned around to see Subaru at the door. What do you want? Masamune asked. Have you finished checking your room? It's okay, I didn't bring much from home. And I didn't use the room much either. I spent most of my time here playing games with you. Here, let me help, Subaru said, crouching on the rug. We'll pick up everything together. As he watched Subaru straightening up a chair which toppled on its side, Masamune had a strange feeling. This boy, Subaru, had spent the best part of a year in this room playing video games. One was in the 9th grade, one in the 8th. Despite all the hours spent together, laughing and exclaiming over the games, it was still hard to believe that Subaru came from a different age, that he was a junior high school student from 1985. He is now 29 years older than me, Masamune thought. He plucked the ruined PlayStation 2 from the mountain of rubble. Damn it, he thought. What are you gonna do with this? He still had the PlayStation 3 at home, and the 4 was launching soon. He knew his dad would buy it for him if he pestered him enough. He decided he wouldn't bother lugging back the broken TV. It was an old brown tube TV his father had forgotten about. Masamune had discovered it in the storage shed, and compared to an LCD TV, it was unbelievably bulky and heavy. It was no better than some antique. Masamune, you mentioned earlier that you had a newer game console at home, but that it didn't fit the TV terminal. What do you mean? Ah, it's this one, PlayStation 2. So I have to explain that, eh? Masamune chose his words carefully. At home, I have a more advanced version of this, PlayStation 3. And that's a device I really wanted to bring over, but they have a more sophisticated TV now, and you don't have one. The plugs won't fit. This retro TV isn't compatible. This PlayStation 2 was actually used by my dad back in the day. Really? He probably still doesn't get it, Masamune thought, but Subaru was humming with a smile on his face. Do you really understand? Masamune couldn't help asking. Not completely, but it's cool to think that the future will turn out like that, he said. So your father liked video games too, did he? Is that why you like them so much? Maybe that's partly why. He and his father rarely play games together anymore, but ever since he could remember, he was used to seeing his father collect games. Even now, if he badgered his dad, he would usually buy him whatever games he asked for, since he understood the appeal himself. The kind of father he was, and Masamune was thankful. You know, Subaru said as he rummaged through the scattered games. What now? Masamune said. I'm thinking of becoming one, Subaru said. One what? Someone who designs games. Masamune, who was on his hands and knees on the floor at this point, and he stopped searching and fell silent. Subaru stopped rummaging too and caught Masamune's eyes. He sat up. I've been thinking about it. In 2013, the year you live in now, I'll be what, 43, 44? Hard to believe. But at this age, I was thinking, though to you, I'll be an old guy. An adult, in other words, Subaru laughed. That's why. That's what will be my goal from now on, to become a game designer. Then you can say, a friend of mine designed this game, and it will be true. Masamune did not know what to say. He felt like he couldn't breathe, as if an unseen force was pressing down on his chest. He felt a sharp twinge on his nose. His eyes began to fill with tears. He looked down quickly. What are you talking about? He managed to say, his voice cracking. We are all going to forget anything we have said here. What's the point? It won't stop me boasting. You think? Still, don't you want to believe that some things will change? That this is all somehow meaningful? Because I never had anything I really wanted to aim for until now. He spoke so casually, it made Masamune wish he could be more serious. So, if I can find something I'm really keen to do, I'll be excited. I think I can remember that much when I go back through the mirror. Or if I will myself too. I promise you. So even if you and I forget each other, you won't be lying. You do have a friend who makes video games. Masamune bit his lips to stop the tears. Masamune. Thank you, Subaru, he said quietly before Subaru looked too closely at his tear-stained cheek. But Subaru looked relieved. He said, nodding. He rested his eyes on the rack devices. Great, he murmured. Fuka closed the lid to the piano. She trailed her eyes around the room with a thankful heart. Taking a handkerchief out of her pocket, she gave the lid a good wipe. As she tidied up the rest of the room, there was a knock on her door. Yes? It's me, Ureshino. They had all decided to come together for one last time in the grand foyer, so why was he now outside her door? She opened it just wide enough to see the side of his face. He was standing in the hallway alone. What is it? She asked quietly. Well, there's something I wanted to tell you. His face was flushed and he was clutching his hand in front of him. Before she could even think of what it might be, he said, The thing is, and looked directly at her, Fuka, will you go out with me? He said it so boldly it surely echoed through the whole castle. Fuka opened the door wide in astonishment. Ureshino looked totally serious. You can give me your answer when we go back through the mirrors, but will you think about it and let me know? Even if you don't remember, it will feel like a drama where two people are fated to be together and one of them spies the other in the crowd. If you see me, something will click. Yeah, but they live in different times. 7 years apart to be exact. In Ureshino's time, while he was in junior high, Fuka would have already graduated. I'm so much older than you. Plus, we're going to forget everything anyway. But even so, I still like you, Ureshino said. He was dead serious, squeezing his ball-up fist with such force they turned a porcelain white. Fuka smiled. He was simply extremely happy. I understand, she said. Sorry. Sorry, I forgot to drink water the entire time. Thank you for the reminder. I understand, she said. If I see you somewhere and fate tugs at me somehow, I'll call out to you. Though, by then, you might be head over heels for someone your own age. 1 moment. No way! I like you! I like you so much, Fuka! They were still talking in the doorway when someone joined them. Yeah, I like you, give me a break. It was Aki, who had apparently just emerged from her own room. She rapped Ureshino on the back of her head. Ow! He cried, rubbing it. Behind Aki were Rion and Kokoro, who was looking flushed and holding her hands out in gesture of apology to Fuka. Sorry to interrupt, she mouthed. What are you saying? Ureshino said. From my perspective, Aki, you are an old woman. There's no chance I could fancy you. Try saying that again, Aki grimaced and yanked at Ureshino's ear. Fuka couldn't help but smile again. Ureshino, Fuka said. If I bump into you, I might not remember you, but you will understand why, won't you? If you remember me, then you can tell me the whole story and convince me to go out with you. I can be a bit stubborn at times, so I might not believe you. Ureshino looked stunned for a second. What? He exclaimed, exaggerating his question. Is that how you answer me? So cool, so disdainful? God, you're really annoying, you know, Aki said, and Fuka just felt content that they could all chat like this. In the grand foyer, the 7 mirrors were each cracked and falling apart, but they had at least been moved back to their original lineup and nailed to the wall. The Wolf Queen had evidently prepared them for their return. I had so much fun, Fuka said, as if speaking for them all. Fuka seldom said what she thought, and Kokoro was happily surprised. She felt exactly the same way. Yeah, she smiled. It was only while I was here that I began to feel normal. Fuka gazed at the group. Behind her round glasses, her eyes looked soft, but also a little sad. I thought I could never be like everyone else. I was just a loser. So it made me so happy when you guys made friends with me, and like you would with anyone. Kokoro smiled at her candor. Ureshino spoke up. But isn't it strange? Everyone looked a little alarmed, wondering what he was about to say. He sounded indignant. Fuka, you're not ordinary at all. You are kind and so together. You are far from ordinary. That's not what I meant. Though I'm really happy to hear that, Ureshino. But it's true, isn't it? Ureshino's right. This is from Rion. Whether you are ordinary or not, it doesn't matter. You are a good person, Fuka. And so, I want to be your friend. That's all there is to it. It was Fuka's turn to gasp. Am I wrong? Rion asked. No. Fuka replied in a small voice, shaking her head. Thank you, she added. Now that you mention it, Subaru said, looking over at Masamune. Masamune, you sometimes call Rion a dish. What does that mean? You said it behind his back, so I thought it must be bad. We are out of here soon, so could you tell me now? What? Masamune said, looking irritably at Subaru and then at Rion. Eh? Rion said, what's that about behind my back? That's freaking creepy. Oh, so it is something bad, is it? I wasn't saying anything bad. It's just not the kind of thing to say to someone's face. Back in 1985, in Subaru's world, maybe dish wasn't a word anyone used much. But for Kokoro, this was vocabulary used by the younger set. It would sound a little weird, for instance, if her parents said it. That's how their communication came about. You used that word to Kokoro, didn't you? Subaru asked her. You said Rion's a dish. What? She exclaimed. Her ears grew hot. I never said that. She really didn't remember, but became so flustered that she broke into sweat. Whoa, that's creepy, said Rion with a huge smile. Let's all tell each other our full names before we say our goodbyes, Subaru suggested. If we see our full names in each other's worlds, it might trigger a memory. My name is Subaru Nagahisa. Subaru is the constellation. Naga and Hisa are the characters meaning long and a long while. My name is Akiko Inoue. Inoue is a common name, Aki said, but then Aki in Akiko is the character for crystal and Ko is just child. She shook her head and then turned to them. Honestly, I didn't want to share my last name at the start because my mother had just remarried and my last name had changed. And I didn't want to tell you my new last name. I am Rion Mizumori. Mizumori means protecting water. And I told you before that Rion is the Ri in Rika signs and the character for the sound on. I am Fuka Hasegawa. Fuka written with the characters for wind and song. I am Kokoro Anzai. Kokoro's written in hiragana, not Chinese character. Kokoro said. You all know my name, Haruka Ureshino. Haruka is the character meaning distant. Ureshino is written with the characters happy and filled. Masamune had remained quiet throughout, frowning for some reason. He said, Asu Masamune. What? They stared at him. They hadn't quite heard properly and pricked up their ears. Masamune's face turned bright red. Asu Masamune. The A means blue and the Su means clear water. Asu! Is that really your name? You're joking, aren't you? I'm not. In 2013, it's a fairly common name, so why don't you oddballs from the past just shut up, okay? Yeah, but Asu is how we Japanese say the word earth, right? So what's that all about? Asked Aki, making Masamune sulkily turn away. Even for Subaru, his best buddy here, this was news. For her part too, Kokoro was surprised. Now that she thought about it, when she was inside Masamune's memory, the Wolf Queen had called him by his full name, and she had thought Masamune was his last name, but she wasn't able to catch the first name. So Masamune was your last name, not your first. Yeah, which is why I didn't want to tell you, because I know you lot will make smart-ass remark. Wow, it's weirder than my name, Ureshino said. Masamune looked even more annoyed. Don't say it's weird, he exclaimed. They were standing shoulder to shoulder in line. The cracked mirror signaled that this was indeed their last journey. According to the Wolf Queen, beyond the castle on the other side, the mirrors were likewise shattered. Aki, Kokoro said to Akiko, who was standing beside her. Yes, Kokoro? Akiko turned her head sideways to look at her. Give me your hand. Aki uncertainly held out her hand. Kokoro clutched it tightly. She remembered what she had seen. The ugly reality that was awaiting on this other side of the mirror. Her mother and stepfather were part of Akiko's unchangeable reality. Once Kokoro let her small hand go, Akiko would have to return on to that world. There was nothing left that Kokoro could do. I'll be waiting for you in the future, she whispered. Akiko's eyes widened. I'll be waiting in 2006. 14 years in your future. Come and see me, okay? Let her understand. All she could say were a few words that she wasn't sure would ever get through her. For several moments, Akiko stood silently, looking at Kokoro, who had turned her gaze forward. Her hand was still in Kokoro's firm grip. She nodded. I think I understand. She was promising Kokoro she would come to see her. I was terrified, thinking the wolf was going to eat me. I'm never doing something stupid like that again. Ever again. And Akiko broke into a smile. People, take care. We will. See you. Bye. Goodbye. Take care. I hope we can see each other sometime. A chorus of voices in a fugue. Akiko's voice, Kokoro, Fuka, Masamune, Ureshino, Rion, Subaru. Their figures merge into the mirrors as they embark on their final passage, back to their own time, to their own reality. The rainbow-colored lights spilled into kaleidoscope that bathed The floor of the grand foyer then vanished. Only the little girl in the wolf mask was still there. She checked that the last vestige of glow had disappeared from each of the mirrors before turning slowly away. Quietly, she drew in a deep breath. It's over, she thought in silence. After a few moments, she heard, "Hi, sis." The voice made the girl in the wolf queen's mask flinch. She turned towards the direction of the voice, the mirrors where the glow had recently dissipated. Then she quickly looked away. Ryon Mizumori was standing tall in front of his mirror. He had been on his way home but had turned back. The wolf queen had her back to him. She pretended not to have heard. But Ryon wasn't about to give up easily. "Mio-chan, say something." "Go home." The wolf queen did not turn around. "I told you to go back. If you don't go now, you'll never be able to get home." She felt something would be destroyed if she looked around, so she gritted her teeth and stared at the grandfather's clock at the top of the staircase. Ryon had no intention of going back. "I had my suspicions from the very first day. 30th of March, the day the castle is due to close, is the anniversary of your passing." His older sister Mio had said, "If I'm not here anymore, I'll hope for one single wish for you, Ryon. I'm so sorry you have had to put up with so much." She remembered her gentleness. "I want the same as you, to walk to school together. Honestly, I was planning to get hold of the key tomorrow and ask for a wish. If Aki had not done what she did, I was going to ask everyone to let me wish that my sister could come back home." The girl, whose face was hidden behind the wolf mask, she had made this castle for him, using every ounce of strength she had left. Once Ryon had this realization, she couldn't shake it. The junior high in Japan she had wanted to attend, the friends she had wanted to have, is exactly the same, Ryon said. "This castle is just like the dollhouse you had in the hospital." The exquisite dollhouse brought by her parents lay next to the window in her hospital room for weeks. As it was a dollhouse, there was no running water, you couldn't use the bathroom, and there was no gas. But there was electricity, since they installed tiny light bulbs through all the rooms. None of the other utilities worked in the castle, but you could still play video game, and you could still flick a switch. There would be light. He was never sure why electricity was the only one thing they had. The dolls she had played with all wore dresses like the one the Wolf Queen had on now. The dollhouse his sister loved so much. The 7 children welcomed into it. The search for the key that followed the story she had read to him over and over. The Wolf Queen and the 7 young goats. The day the castle was scheduled to close, 30th of March, not 31st of March. The fact that this was the anniversary of her death had to be significant. The castle was prepared just for him. The Wolf Queen had told them she had invited other groups before, but he knew that wasn't true. This group she had invited was unique. "Mio-chan!" The Wolf Queen didn't reply. Ryon carried on speaking. "The only year missing is 1999. You brought a kid from every 7th year, but 1999 is the only year where there is no representative. Between Aki's time and mine was a gap of 14 years, twice the other ones." He fairly hurled this at the Wolf Queen's back since she refused to turn and face him. "You and I are 7 years apart." His sisters died at 13, when Ryon was 6. Her first year of junior high. She had never worn the school uniform for Yukishina No. 5 junior high that hung on the wall in her hospital room, not even once. The memory was so painful, as if his chest was being ripped open and his heart was being wrenched out. So 1999 is you, isn't it? The girl who wanted to go to Yukishina number 5 but couldn't. The Wolf Queen's back seemed to tremble ever so slightly, but her shiny, toy-like little shoes were planted firmly on the floor. When had she created all this? In her last year of life, she had mostly kept her eyes closed as if sleeping. Even little Rion thought it would be better that she sleep if she was in that much pain. Was it then? He wondered. Eyes closed, asleep. She had come here every day. If I'm not here anymore, I'll hope for one single wish for you, Rion. I want to be able to walk with you to school. Rion said this innocently enough, his one modest wish. If I do go back to that school, then I want the same as you, to walk together, Rion, and to play with you. His sister had said it. This surely what she had wished for. His sister had always loved making up stories, and this castle and the quest for the key were exactly the kind of thing she would have come up with. The Wolf Queen still didn't turn around. She seemed resolved not to face him no matter what. Rion knew well how strong she was, and she would not give him. At first, I thought my dead sister had come back since she wanted to see me. But when I saw the way the 7th-year timeline seemed incomplete, I finally understood that you must be traveling here from that hospital room too. Your reality is still in that room with me when I was 6, isn't it? Rion's voice began to crack as he fought back tears. You were coming over here every day back then, weren't you? He gazed around the castle. That last long year you spent it in here, in this very dollhouse, together with me and all the others. He finally began to understand what her last words really meant. Rion, I'm sorry I scared you, but I had a good time. On that day, when he was 6, he thought she wasn't referring to her frightening him by dying, but she wasn't. Those were the true feelings of this Wolf Queen, who now refused to turn and face him. His sister had meant the words, I had a good time for this Rion, the one here right now. The next day, the castle would close forever. 30th of March, the day she died. My sister will leave me. The Wolf Queen is about to die. You did this all for me, didn't you? He choked now on his words. He couldn't finish them, though he was trying. Rion and his sister were 7 years apart, so there was no way they would ever go to school together, even if she had not been sick. Rion was now 13 years old, a freshman in junior high, the same age as his sister when she died. That had to mean something. She had built this castle expressively to meet her brother when she reached the same age as she had been on the day of her passing, but not just Rion. She had gathered other children from 7-year intervals, none of them who attended school. Mio had always been good at making up stories, like the premise for a fairy tale. She decided on the rules and played with them, all according to the rules of her game. Within the castle, the Wolf Queen was free, vibrant, and full of life. She would appear out of thin air as if weightless and then disappear, playing with them, all just as she wished and obviously having a wonderful time of it. Rion looked at his sister in her frilly dress. He broke down. Her hair was still long, her hands pale, yet plump and supple, not the thin hand that Rion had come to know. I'm glad I could see you. That's all he wanted her, above all, to know. Rion smiled at her back. I was so happy you came to see me this way. I'll make it through without you somehow. I'll let people know what I want to do, and if I don't like something, I'll let them know. I regret now I didn't tell Mom and Dad how I really felt. Over this last year and a half, Rion had come to understand that it wasn't entirely because she wanted to distance herself from him that his mother made him go abroad to school. She had recommended he study overseas, yet She never stopped worrying about him, evident from all the presents she brought when she visited, and how she had taken him her homemade cake. "Do you ever feel like you want to come back?" his mother had asked. Maybe he hadn't been lying when she said she wanted to give him the opportunity to develop his talents. Maybe she truly believed it would be for his own good. "Yes, I want to go back to Japan," Rion had thought. And his mother hugged him. I know. I'm the one who gave up and swallowed back on my own words," he thought. "If only I had persisted with her, she might have come to understand how strongly I felt." "Mio-chan!" The Wolf Queen still did not respond. His sister, who had given so much warmth, so many precious memories, wasn't coming back. "So this is the end. Could you listen to one more thing I would like to?" Mio had always had a soft spot for her little brother. He had such fond memories of that. She remained facing away, and he continued to address her back. "I want to remember this," he said. "I want to remember it all. Remember the others, and remember you. I know you might say that it's impossible, but I still want to." He waited in silence, but the Wolf Queen did not respond. Rion turned towards the mirrors. Inside himself, he whispered to his sister, "Farewell." He reached his palms out to the mirror. Then she spoke, "I'll do my very best." He turned around to see her, but the dazzling light from the mirror had made his field of vision melt, and the shapes in the grand foyer began to fade. The Wolf Queen was no longer visible. Something flickered before him. The Wolf Queen was in front of him. Their eyes met. She slowly removed her wolf mask and smiled, or at least it seemed that way. 7th of April 2006. As Kokoro left home punctually, her mother called out, "Will you be okay? Do you want me to go with you?" "I'm okay, I'll go by myself," Kokoro said. Last night, she had told her mother over and over again, but she still seemed worried. It's only to be expected, Kokoro thought. But she had made up her mind. Today is the first day of the 5th semester of 8th grade for her at Yukishina No. 5. She was able to go confidently to school because she had understood that this school wasn't the only place she belonged to. Moe-chan had moved on to another school, but her words to Kokoro remained strongly etched in her memory. It's only school. She knew there were other worlds, other places she could go. If she didn't like her school, there would always be the number 1 and number 3 junior high nearby. She knew she would make it. She could go anywhere. It wasn't as if it was always going to be easy. There will always be people she disliked. That reality wasn't going to go away. There was a person who had said she didn't have to struggle if she didn't want to. That's why she decided to go back to school. The cherry trees were in full bloom, and their blossoms fluttered silently to the ground. A light wind was blowing. As Kokoro walked through the school gate, she held her head down in the wind. She was a little anxious. It would be a lie to say she wasn't, but she had set off to school today with her head held high. She heard a voice from somewhere in front of her. "Hey!" Eyes narrowed in the blustery wind. Kokoro looked towards the voice. The fallen blossoms stopped swirling and her field of vision began to clear. She saw a boy straddling a bicycle, and he was looking in her direction. He was wearing the boys' uniform for Yukishina No. 5 Junior High, the school badge showing clearly on his chest. The embroidered name tag said Mizu Mori. "I feel as if I know his name," Kokoro thought. Her eyes widened, because sometimes she had a dream of a transfer student arriving. And among all her many classmates, he noticed her. And a smile As dazzling as the sun spread over his face, he said, "Good morning," and he smiled. Epilogue. As soon as the child entered the room, she knew the time has come. She wasn't sure why she was so certain, but her heart trembled and whispered to her, "You have been waiting for this day for a long, long time." The pain that recurred so often, the feeling of her arm being yanked, came back to her. Akiko Kitajima was a member of the NPO Kokoro no Kyoshitsu, as well as serving as a counselor for several local schools. She had been involved with this alternative school from its inception. Like many of the children who came to it, she had also attended Yukishina No. 5 Junior High. There was a time back in junior high when Akiko had stopped going. It was autumn in the first year while at her grandmother's funeral that Akiko first met Miss Samejima. Samejima sensei, Yuriko Samejima. She had lived in the neighborhood near Akiko's grandmother since the days when Akiko was very young and had apparently helped Akiko's grandmother when her shopping and other errands. Miss Samejima was quite an intense lady, and at the funeral she wailed far more loudly than any of the deceased-owned relatives. Akiko and her family were taken aback, for Akiko's grandmother had never mentioned this friend. When Miss Samejima came up to Akiko and asked, "Are you Akiko-chan?" Akiko was in for an even bigger surprise. They may have never heard a word from Akiko's grandmother about Miss Samejima, but she certainly seemed to know all about Akiko. She took her hand and looked intently at Akiko. "I hear you dropped out of school," she said, holding her hand even tighter. "You poor child," she said, tearing up. Miss Samejima had never met Akiko's mother before, but she didn't hesitate to speak her mind. "You have never paid her any attention," Miss Samejima said, and Akiko's mother paled and stared at her. "Who do you think you are?" she fired back. "What gives you the right to speak to me like this?" Samejima sensei's response could not have been more brazen. "I am this girl's grandmother's friend, and that's who I am. Akiko, your grandmother was always so worried about you, and she asked me to help you if anything ever happened to her. She told me this as a last request. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying." Miss Samejima ran a little school for kids who found they couldn't keep up and starting to drop out from school, all for a low monthly fee. She urged Akiko to visit it, but Akiko refused, thinking the old lady was a busybody. But Miss Samejima didn't give up so easily. She took Akiko to the school she dropped out of and convinced the teachers to let Akiko repeat the year. "Let her study hard for one more year," Miss Samejima said, "and then she can decide if she wants to go on to high school or what it is she wants to do. I'll supervise her all the way." And with that, the deed was done. She would repeat the final year. But Akiko could only see her as a busybody middle-aged woman butting in where she wasn't wanted. She was sure that even if she repeated the year, it would all end up as if it had before. She had braced zero desire to go back to school. At least that was her attitude until April, when her extra year of school began. As she was about to start her second time around in 9th grade, she finally decided to allow Miss Samejima to help her. She knew she was in trouble. She couldn't keep up with schoolwork. She didn't know what it was she didn't know. And she simply felt that this was time to ask for help, and she started to want to study again. She thought there was no one who could help her, but now she saw that there was Miss Samejima offering a hand. It came as a sudden realization. That was when she started to feel a sharp pain running down her forearm. It felt as if someone was pulling her arm hard. So, Akiko graduated from junior high 1 year late, moved on to high school, and during that year, her long-held wish came true. Enter the education department of a university. Miss Samejima got in touch with her with the news that she was starting an NPO. She planned to rent a larger building than her little Juku had been using and create an alternative free school where children couldn't go or wouldn't attend regular public school could go. The free school was named Kokoro no Kyoshitsu, Classroom for the Heart. She invited Akiko to help out. I'll be happy to, Akiko replied. She was overjoyed that Miss Samejima needed her, and since she planned to be a teacher herself, the experience she might gain there would certainly come in useful. She first met Dr. Kitajima in 1998, a couple of years after she began to assist at the school. Akiko was a junior in college by then. Dr. Kitajima was a caseworker at a nearby general hospital, and he learned about the alternative school and got in touch. He was hoping to take an inpatient children at his hospital who were falling behind. He had also been very grateful, he said, if some of the teachers could visit the hospital. As Akiko found herself more drawn to his calm smile and gentle manner, she had a premonition. I might end up marrying him. Kitajima, she repeated his last name to herself, and each time she did, the feeling inside her grew stronger. One day, Akiko encountered a young girl at the hospital. Dr. Kitajima had brought her into the courtyard outside. She was a tiny girl with a lively personality. Akiko heard she was a first-year student in junior high, even though she seemed much younger. Her gaze, though, was very adult. The medication she was on had made her hair fall out. She now wore a cap. She had not officially entered Yukishina No. 5 junior high, though she had yet to attend a single day. Her name was Mio Mizumori. Akiko would never forget the encounter. That year, Akiko and Mio began classes once a week. Akiko-sensei, I'm looking forward to this. This girl was a bundle of eagerness as well as curiosity. Every time Mio's large eye gazed at her, Akiko sat bolt right up, goosebumps spreading across her as if this girl called her Akiko-sensei. She wanted to continue to spend time with her and teach her to be a teacher her young pupil could be proud of. There are children like this in the world, she thought. Meeting Mio had a tremendous impact on her. Mio wanted nothing more than to go to school, but she could not. She wasn't pessimistic or gloomy at all, but instead, she was eager to absorb and learn everything she could. More than a few times her iron was spurred Akiko on and made her feel she was the one being rescued. The experience touched Akiko immensely. She thought she understood the feelings of children who couldn't attend school, who couldn't make it, didn't fit in, the ones who stuck out, but she had not. As she worked towards her goal of becoming a teacher, as she helped out at the alternative school, she had been so sure of it deep down, but she was wrong. Her own circumstances back in the junior high, and the situations of each of the children she met now were unique. Not a single one was the same. When Akiko was a senior in college, Mio passed away. A light spring rain was falling on the day of her funeral, and Akiko stood by her grave, blank and crying as she did, and she looked at Mio's little brother. Seeing him standing there, she could hardly breathe. Her heart fluttered as she recalled Mio's voice calling her Akiko-sensei. She understood how very precious her time with her had been. What she wanted to become was perhaps a bit different from the usual public school teacher. She wanted as much as she could to continue her connection with the alternative school and to be the kind of person who could get close to all the children, to meet their own individual circumstances and needs. She moved on from graduate school, got married, changed her last name. As she worked with the alternative school, a thought arose her, and before she realized it, Now it's my turn. Why she felt that way she had no idea. But from long ago, she had always had a scene etched in her heart, a strong sharp pain she felt in her arm. The memory of someone yanking her heart. I was rescued. There were children somewhere who trembling and at the risk of their life pulled me by the arm and brought me back into this world. It's okay, Aki. Grow up to be an adult. I'm in the future where you are too. Children who said these words to me kept me tethered to the world, gave me the chance to grow up. Their faces weren't clear, but somehow she always saw Mio's image overlaid on them. Why? She didn't know. But this thought came to her every time the stabbing pain in her arm hit return. Now, I would like to pull those children by the arm. Kokoro Anzai walked slowly towards the room, lips pale, eyes darting around uneasily. When Aki sees this girl, she knows instantly. The time has finally come. Why? She can't say. It feels as if she has been waiting a lifetime for this moment. The familiar sharp pain in her arms comes back as if it was being yanked hard. What sort of trauma this girl had been exposed to? What sort of struggles has she faced? Akiko has no idea. But still, her heart swells at the thought. So, Kokoro, I understand you are a student from Yukishina number 5 Junior High School. Yes, I went there too, Aki says. I've been waiting for you, a voice inside Aki said. It's okay. Grow up to be an adult. Hanging on the wall of the free school, a small rectangular mirror reflects the young woman and the girl. A beam of sunlight catches its edge, and there is a tiny flash of rainbow colors. Aki thinks, and she has the feeling that in the mirror, sitting there, are she and the girl as they used to be back in junior high. A cool spring breeze carrying the scent of green grass blows gently in, caressing the surface of the mirror, dissolving the rainbow-colored light. The light slowly, softly envelops both of them, Kokoro and Aki, as they sit there, face to face.
And that is the end of
Lonely Castle in the Mirror by MIzuki Tsujimura.
It's very long. Chapter third March chapter is really long. It took way longer than it really should. The pacing, I think the book has a pacing problem. Anyway, I think everyone has left except for Zapop and a bot in my viewers list right now. As usual, thank you so much for being here with me and listening to me read. Whether you are listening to me read live or you are listening to the VOD, I still appreciate you. Thank you so much, and I'm really hungry. I really want to eat. And I shall see you all again soon. Tomorrow. I'm still deciding what book to read. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day and rest well. Bye.